Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, he, him.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jake. My pronouns are also he, him.
And this is Tales from the Backlog, where each week I'm joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today's game is Ghost of Yōtei, but if this is your first time here, a few quick things. Thank you for stopping by, first and foremost. If you like the show, please consider sticking around, subscribing, and you can also support the show in a lot of ways. You can sign up on Patreon. You can share the episode with friends, share it in Discord servers, leave ratings and reviews, likes and comments on YouTube. All of those things are very helpful. And the other thing is, if you have not yet played Ghost of Yōtei, here is the spoiler policy. We are not going to spoil the story for quite some time, per usual. If you have not played the game, you're safe for a while. Check down in the show notes for a timestamp for when the spoilers begin. And until then, rest easy and enjoy the show. Now, as you heard at the beginning, Jake is back on the show. If you don't know him, he's one of the hosts of the Pre-Order Bonus podcast. He is a streamer, a critic for so many games, and also a vengeful spirit. Jake, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back, and great to be back to exact some very specific revenge.
Yes. You said that in a way where I was like, oh, did I say something on the last recording we did?
Last recording we did was on Mad Max. That was a really good time. No, I don't have any revenge, actually, at this point. So
we'll try and create something for you.
You know, it's not that hard. I could come up with something pretty. If you were to insult, let's see, I don't know, a Short Hike or Cuphead, then yeah, I might have something to say to you.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I love both of those games. So, interesting though, you might be working on a little bit of typecasting because the last episode we did was Mad Max, another revenge story. We have another revenge story here today.
That's right.
Breath of the Wild, our other episode, that doesn't fit into this category neatly, so we'll just push it over to the side. But it's great to have you back for Ghost of Yōtei today.
It's great to be back. Always happy to be here. I guess I am typecast, though. Breath of the Wild, Mad Max, and this game, they're all open world games.
Yes.
And I would say that Zelda in Breath of the Wild probably wishes that Link would have the urgency of a revenge story.
Yeah.
But most people do not, right?
Right. Atsu is definitely not going to take time to cook delicious curries and explore the wilderness quite like Link does in that game. So
yeah.
Now, the game, again, it is Ghost of Yōtei today. It is an action-adventure game developed by Sucker Punch Productions and published by Sony for the PS5 in 2025. Some credits of note: the directors of the game were Nate Fox and Jason Connell, producer Brian Fleming, writers Ian Ryan, John Dombrow, Lee Kuo, Ariadna Martinez, and Courtney Woods, art lead Joanna Wong, and music by Toma Otoa. We'll have a couple more credits as we go through the episode. And of course, a huge game. Many, many more people worked on this game than those names up at the top. If you have not played, if you don't know what Ghost of Yōtei is, we have our quick pitches per usual. I'm taking a pretty straightforward one on this episode. I say Ghost of Yōtei is a classic revenge tale at the intersection of American Western and samurai cinema. Jake, what would you say?
Very nice. I like that. Mine's also pretty straightforward. I would say a cinematic third-person revenge story with plenty blood, guts, and fire.
Yeah, all of those. Check. Maximum amount for sure. I played this on the PS5, of course, at the time of recording. It's the only place it's available. It took me 37 hours to roll the credits. I did a good amount of side content. So I would say my playthrough is probably middle of the road. Didn't mainline it, didn't 100% it, but did a bunch of extra stuff. How about you?
Very similar. I clocked in at 33, 34 hours playing this game. Yeah, same thing. When I first booted up the game, I was doing all the open world things, and by the end of the game, I was mainlining and really being very choosy with the different side quests that I was doing.
Yeah. I didn't. There were certain types of side quests that I didn't do, but I quickly found out the ones that were most fulfilling for me, and I did all of those that I could find. So Let's see. We always start again with our histories with the game, and since this is a series, it's a sequel. We have a game before this to talk about a little bit. I invited you, Jake, on the show because I know you're a Ghost of Tsushima fan. Before release, we had already signed you up for this episode. So tell everyone about your history with that game. I know both of us played this game on day one, so that's not such an interesting tale with this particular game. But Ghost of Tsushima, what was it about it that made you really like it?
Well, I think like most people, when Ghost of Tsushima was in production, we didn't hear all that much from Sony or Sucker Punch on it. And then it released, I want to say, summer of 2020. I want to say that this was like height of the quarantine, moment of the pandemic, right? And it was like 2 months out before launch. We got this massive marketing preview, and suddenly everybody turned their head to see what the heck was going on. So I was super interested in this game. I didn't have a PlayStation console at the time. And so when it released, I actually started watching a few streams of it. And I watched somebody stream all the way up through the first splash title. And I was supposed to have the stream on at the side while I was working, and I could not look away.
Yeah.
And as soon as that splash title hit, like I wasn't even playing the game, but that is one of the greatest moments, riding out into that field. Ghost of Tsushima comes across the screen, the swell of the orchestra in the background, the wind billowing, the grass flowing. And I was like, dang, I have to play this game. And so I didn't play it at launch. I ended up playing it, ended up borrowing a PS4 from a friend later. I want to say it was, I don't know, between 6 and 12 months later, maybe about a year later. I ended up borrowing a PS4. That was the first game I played, and I couldn't put it down.
Yeah, I remember, I had a PS4. I bought Ghost of Tsushima, if not on launch day, very shortly after that. And that opening absolutely blew me away too. And, this isn't a spoiler, but spoilers, it blew me away in Ghost of Yōtei too. Like Sucker Punch really knows how to do a title card drop.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. And Ghost of Yōtei or Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorites on the PS4. It's actually episode 2 of this podcast. The earliest of days, back when the show, if you go back and listen to it, and a lot of people with podcasts, long-running podcasts, will tell you, don't go listen to my early episodes, or their early episodes. I think that those early episodes of my show hold up fine. I'm sure the conversation was okay. I don't think I've changed that much. But the one thing this is a little Tales from the Backlog lore. The original title of the show was actually Baby Got Backlog. And so I recorded probably about 8 episodes with that title. And I hadn't released them yet. I built up this log of episodes to put out. And then I found another show had that title, and they were releasing episodes at the time. So if you go back, you might be able to hear the cut where I had to re-record the intro with the new Tales from the Backlog title.
Interesting.
Episode 2. That was a long time ago, and it was one of the first games I wanted to feature on this new podcast I made, talking about games for hours and hours and hours, as we do. So I love that game too. And very ready for Ghost of Yōtei. It was probably, I don't think I made an official most anticipated 2025 games list, but if I ever did, this was for sure near the top of that. I was really excited for this.
Yeah, this was so in the Pre-Order Bonus podcast, we do usually it's top 10 most anticipated games, and for my co-host Cameron and I, it was number 1, both of us, for 2025.
Easy. So, our opening thoughts about Ghost of Yōtei then, both of us came into this excited for it. I'm sure we had big expectations for it. Where are you landing as far as kind of top level thoughts about it?
Okay, I ended actually replayed Ghost of Tsushima and the Iki Island expansion on PS5 because I own a PS5, and so I got that director's cut for pretty cheap. This game came out, Ghost of Yōtei, just to clarify, came out October 2nd, 2025, and I replayed Ghost of Tsushima and the expansion in August.
Okay.
And so I finished in August. I was extremely excited to get into Ghost of Yōtei. And top level thoughts on this, I was really worried the first 2 hours, actually. And I think as I got deeper and deeper into the game, I realized that I think there's a lot of hypercorrection based on some, little faults from Ghost of Tsushima. But overall, I think this is a game that you gotta play, and it is still one of the best spectacles of this year.
Yeah. I think that this game does a lot of the stuff that Ghost of Tsushima did well. This game also does well. Cinematography, framing up cutscenes, beautiful, like, lush environments. Probably, for games that go for this, like, photorealistic look, like, Ghost of Yōtei is obviously, like, they're exaggerating what it's like to be out in a field of flowers. But
Yeah.
it's still one of, I probably, for my money, the most beautiful open world that is going for, like, this photorealistic thing. Maybe Red Dead Redemption 2 could still give it a run for its money, but, like, we're in rare air. That's really what I'm trying to say here. And my big takeaway is that this game almost shot itself in the foot to the point where I, like, it almost cratered itself for me, because there is so much competing for your attention in this game. Little things like the bird that flies out and wants you to follow it to points of interest, and foxes that run out and, like, go fight this guy and then go run over these flowers for a speed boost and pick up these crafting materials and all that shit. Like, I was legitimately feeling, like, claustrophobic playing this when I should be breathing in this, like, beautiful open world, and it almost cratered this game for me. I could feel them not trust that this beautiful open world was enough to keep my attention.
Yeah.
And it honestly, like, shout out to a friend of both of our shows, Rouge, who told me, hey, in the options, you can turn that bird off. And it was like, snap, problems disappeared. And I'm just like, okay, I'm having a good time now. And I ended up, like, with a bunch of momentum, finishing the game really strong. But you said there's a bit of overcorrection, and your memory on Ghost of Tsushima is a lot fresher than mine. I have not played that game since it came out. So I couldn't remember, like, I don't remember all that shit competing for my attention in Ghost of Tsushima the way it does in Yōtei, but it definitely felt like a lot of it was added in. I thought Tsushima did a good job of hiding some of those open world activities, we'll say, behind things that feel a little bit more natural in the world. And I felt like Yōtei added a bunch of stuff that's always just yelling at me to pay attention to me, stuff like that.
I have a list here. We're not going to go through all of it, okay? Of things where I feel like Ghost of Yōtei hypercorrected. But I do agree with you in the sense of just the presence of these activities, things to do in this world. I do think that was a hypercorrection and overcorrection. Recently playing, so in August, as I'm playing through Ghost of Tsushima, I had the same thought as I did when I first played through it, which is that I was loving it, but also that this was the best Assassin's Creed game that I have played.
Yeah,
I think Ghost of Tsushima very much was following. Well, I mean, it stands out on its own, I think, in some ways, but it took an established formula and it iterated on it. And you could see the shared DNA in sort of how it approaches open world design. Part of what makes Ghost of Tsushima really work is that those things that you're looking for, the thing that the yellow bird can lead you to, you got to go out of your way to find them. And it's not necessarily a puzzle, but sometimes you might have to navigate like a labyrinth of a bamboo forest to get to what you're trying to find. I think the difference, one of the biggest differences I would say here in Ghost of Yōtei is that the open world activities are much less optional than they are in Ghost of Tsushima, and they're much louder. And so this is why hypercorrection is the word that I comes to mind. You already have a ton of incentive to go do these things. Like, if you want to increase your resolve, like, you got to go and do these things. If you want to get ability points, you got to go do these open world activities. But they didn't need to just kind of be lined up in a row as you're riding on your horse through a field. I agree with your assessment, absolutely, that it feels like in Ghosts of Yōtei, they're like, we cannot have this open world feel empty. Therefore, we must show to the player on a silver platter brought right up to their face, look at all the things you can do in this world.
Yeah.
I agree with you that this game does best compare with Red Dead Redemption 2 in that this world is so stunning and alive that I actually think for most players who enjoy the open world game, the aesthetic and the writing through the world does way more than it does in other open world games that do really feel like checklists. But Ghost of Yōtei had both, and it was just too much to compete, for your attention, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will. I'll dive into that. I think that sets up a real clash, almost from like different, departments within Sucker Punch. And I'll talk about that clash a little bit later. We want to get into kind of setting up what the game is about, but
yeah,
that is right on my mind, even when we're doing like top level introductory thoughts, because I think that there is a clash, a competition at like the heart of this game that feels really unnecessary to me and hurt my experience quite a bit for a while. Whereas like the stuff that I knew I could count on, the world is really pretty. The story presentation is cool. The characters are likable for the most part. I enjoyed following the story. I like the twists that it took, stuff like that. I thought that was going to be the case, and it was, but I wasn't counting on all this competition for my attention. Like they thought, if he doesn't pick something up within 10 seconds, he's going to turn the game off and open TikTok or something. And I do have attention problems, but I mean, you got to give us a little bit more credit than that.
Oh, that's funny to hear. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I'm going to keep this thought really brief because we will get into it. Yeah, I agree in that sense. Absolutely. I think, just in my play experience, I was able to turn off my brain in some ways. There are some ways that the game like organizes itself that does, I would say, mitigate a lot of the clutter. But yeah, I think just it was kind of wild to me how much stuff they just put in and a lot of this is just like crafting materials.
Yeah.
Cheap stuff, just all, I mean, in a line, in a row from one destination to another.
Yeah.
That was surprising.
Yeah. Well, we will revisit this. We'll definitely put a pin because I got more to say about open world games, as I think a lot of our thoughts about open world games are continuously evolving through the years. So for now, we'll put a pin in that. We will come back and we will set up what are you doing in Ghost of Yōtei? Ghost of Yōtei takes place hundreds of years after the events of Ghosts of Tsushima. It is a sequel, but it's not a direct sequel. It does not take place in Tsushima. It takes place in Ezo, which is modern-day Hokkaido, so the northern part of Japan. And you do not play as Jin, hundreds of years later. Jin's not around anymore. You play as Atsu, who is played by Erika Ishii, who... just real quick, Erika Ishii, they do a fantastic performance as Atsu. Atsu is a character you want to root for, but is not a perfect character. The right type of character, I think, to lead a revenge story like this. And it is a revenge story because as a small child, Atsu watches her family get murdered by the local Lord Saito, voiced by Feodor Chin in the English voice cast. Did you play in English or Japanese, Jake?
I had every intention to switch from Japanese to English, but I never did because I just loved the voice acting in Japanese.
Hell yeah, awesome. I played in English because I was interested in the cast, where in games that are set in Japan I would normally play in Japanese. So glad to hear the Japanese cast kept you there the whole time.
Oh yeah, loved it.
So Lord Saito goes to Atsu's house with his 5 generals. They're collectively known as the Yōtei 6. They kill Atsu's parents, they shoot her brother, and they skewer Atsu to a burning tree through the chest with one of their swords and leave her to die as the tree burns. Atsu escapes and swears her vengeance against them. She fights and trains in the south. She fights in the wars for many years, and now she's back in her homeland, coming to get her revenge. So let's talk about Atsu. Do you agree with my assessment of Atsu as a character generally here?
I do. I thought Atsu was a really fantastic character. I really loved her moment to moment in what she said and how she handled things. I mean, I think for a revenge story, you need somebody who's tough, somebody who's got grit, somebody with very thick skin, and somebody who can bite back, whether that be, verbally or physically. And I think Atsu does a fantastic job of embodying all of those personality traits. I would say this is okay because it's a revenge story, but Atsu for a long time, while I found her to be endearing and written well in these moments like I'm talking about, her character arc is flat for a very long time.
For a while, yeah.
But it's a revenge story, and that's typically the case in revenge stories. So it's not necessarily like all that original of a criticism. However, and sorry, you can you could stop me because I love my boy Jin Sakai. But and I don't really want to make a lot of comparisons between Atsu and Jin because they are very different stories and characters with absolutely different motives. But I was a little surprised because in Ghost of Tsushima, you are in Jin's character arc from the get-go and you are evolving with him in every single main quest. Whereas Atsu does not have those moments or a desire to really become a different person or grapple with the idea of change. And so she's a little flatter as a character in that regard.
Yeah, I would agree. And like you said, for a while, because, if you are going to have a relatively flat character in a story like this, I think that it's a revenge story. So she is incredibly driven on her quest for revenge. And so if she's not going to change through that story, then the fact that she's unwilling to change needs to create drama within the story. And Ghost of Yōtei definitely does that. So while you're right, like I was writing out notes and I was like, is Atsu as interesting as I thought she was while I was playing the game? And I ultimately am like, yeah, I do think she's a pretty interesting character because that tunnel vision that someone on this like intense revenge story has gets in the way of other things. And I won't spoil like what happens later on that like introduces those complications. But the fact that Atsu's spent her whole, her late childhood and then all of her adulthood plotting revenge, getting stronger, training, and coming back now, and she's here, they're within reach. They're in this area. She can go track them down now. And she doesn't want to let anything prevent her from, she has this sash. It's a plot device they use throughout the game. She has a sash with all 6 of the Yōtei 6's names written on it. And every time she kills one, she crosses their name out with that person's blood. It's really fucking cool.
It's cool.
Whenever she does it. And it's like, it's used as a device throughout the story. Like nothing is going to stop her from crossing those names out on her sash. Until things get a little bit more complicated. And the fact that those complications often arise because she's so unwilling to change and because she's not planning for life after this. If she dies during the final killing blow, that's fine with her.
Oh yeah.
And so all of these things combine to give some spice to this story.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and this is something that does irk me is people say that bad character development, they'll say that character's written poorly or that's a badly written character, and what the point where I want to make is that you can have a really well-written character that does exactly what you're saying. A poorly written character typically comes down to when they do not have plot events to allow that character to make a decision that will be impactful on who they are as a person, right?
Yeah.
In Atsu, because she is so incredibly driven, and this opening sequence, I mean, you get the motivation quite clearly from the onsen. It's a pretty graphic depiction of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree in that, like, she's incredibly driven. I think I just was curious. It wasn't until I saw plot events where she was thinking about who she was as a person and what she wanted to be that I started to get more invested emotionally in who she was as a character. Yeah. I would say, and this is what I'm calling flat, just to clarify for people listening, is it takes a while before any plot event actually makes her consider, is this what I want to be? Is this who I want to be? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I ended up really liking her, and I'm gonna stop myself here because I'm gonna say more on this in the spoiler section. I'll just leave it at that.
That's very fair for sure. But I agree with you. That is generally like where the story started to really get momentum for me, is when those things kind of started to get introduced that give Atsu pause and make her think about, is this who I want to be? Is this the right thing to do? What are the effects on other people around me? Which is not something she thinks about early in the game.
Yeah.
You get the early scene. They show you her family getting killed by the Yōtei 6. And then the prologue that kind of teaches you the combat. You get your tutorials and stuff. That is Atsu taking out the first one called the Snake. And this is a good segue to talk about the presentation of this game, because the part at Atsu's house where her family gets killed, you know, it's very impressive, and it's really brutal. So it's like you're hooked in by that. The part where she goes and she kills the snake, that's when you get like, oh, Sucker Punch they're really flexing the cinematic chops here. Like they really know how to set up a duel, or you know, you have this entrance where like the snake and all his cronies are drinking in this like sake bar, and Atsu like dramatically like busts the door open, stands there as like it's raining in the background and stuff. All this stuff is like consistently really fucking cool the whole game.
Yep.
Every moment like this is always like, this is really awesome to watch.
Man, these folks at Sucker Punch, I mean, I would put on multiple hats to take them off and tip them at you. Like, these folks, they've done their homework thoroughly, and they are they're technical, you know, wizards over there, right? Mm-hmm. And so anytime a cinematic showed up, I never picked up my phone, you know, like, which will happen sometimes when you're playing games. I mean, that's kind of the reality of things. If you've gotten a few buzzes and the cinematic comes up and you might check your phone. Nah, dude, I put my controller down and I, you know, folded my arms, and I was in like, okay, we're watching what's going on right now. Yeah. I think that this, you know, there's a lot of comparison between video games and film. And I think that the cinematography here, you mentioned it earlier, is just brilliant. I can only imagine. I would love to be a fly on the wall and watch them storyboard out all these different scenes and how they are going to set up, especially the duels, just like the drama of the duels and talking with these different characters. This opening one with the snake is a wonderfully designed character, you know, looks villainous. You want to hate him. You're there rooting for Atsu. And there's just like a whole bunch of freaking cool moments of just her just being so tough in the face of, you know, adversity, overcoming overwhelming odds. And so, yeah, when I watched this moment, I was bought in on Atsu as like, yeah, dude, she's taking people to task. She's up to the challenge, and I'm excited for it. Yeah. It kind of starts there where she gets the reputation as the Onryo, like the vengeful spirit, and it's well deserved after that scene with the snake. Kind of along the cinematography lines, I wanted to talk a little bit about the influences that went into the cinematography in this game. I was playing this, and I texted you, and I texted some other people, and I was like,
Ghost of Yōtei really feels like a Western, like an American Western or a spaghetti Western.
Yeah.
With, for example, the duels, the way that a character is shot or the two characters are shot as they line up for a duel. The way the music sounds in this game reminds me a lot of Westerns. And so I was like, that's a really smart observation, Dave. And then I went to look it up. Turns out everyone knows that Sucker Punch is like really inspired by Kurosawa and similar Japanese filmmakers. It turns out the spaghetti Westerns just copied Kurosawa's work. Like they got sued because one of their movies, I think it was A Fistful of Dollars, was so similar to Yojimbo. They got sued. And so it's like, okay, not the smartest. I'm not the only person to make that connection, obviously. But it was a really cool connection to make. And you can tell I'm not a film buff. So that was a cool thing to learn about this like relationship between these Japanese movies that we knew Sucker Punch was influenced by. Yeah. And then the Westerns and the spaghetti Westerns that I've watched more of those than I have, Japanese movies and stuff like that. The music, the way that everything is framed up, the type of character, like the Atsu character archetype feels like a Western character from movies I've watched. Mm-hmm. And the Yōtei 6 is a Western ass, name for a band of outlaws, the Yōtei 6. So I loved this. More so like learning about this than making an original discovery, we'll say.
Well, I love actually the way that you described this and how you kind of came to this conclusion. Because one, it doesn't really matter if you know the history or not. I think oftentimes it just kind of becomes trivia. But what I will say is that you being able to make that connection speaks to the quality of this game. Yeah. And mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It speaks to the quality of them really capturing this style in these Kurosawa films and these spaghetti Westerns, right? Now I've only watched like 2 Kurosawa films, and I've only watched a few classic like samurai movies, and like you, I've probably watched like a lot more spaghetti Westerns. And I think your observation of this feeling like a Western, I think really rings true for my, imperfect observation of these 2 different styles of movies is thematically what drives your main character in a spaghetti Western is typically some sort of personal justice. Mm-hmm. And in Westerns in particular, they focus on the character of the outlaw, which is literally somebody outside of the law in terms of how they operate, outside of legal measures, right? Mm-hmm. Or that the law has ousted them, that has kicked them out for not behaving the way that they should. And Atsu very much feels like, I would say, a Western outlaw in that sense. Yeah. I'm sorry, everybody. Another comparison to Jin Sakai. We're at 2. I've got a running counter in my head now.
At least it's the same series. Like, I think it's okay. Okay. You're not comparing it to Dark Souls, not yet.
Not yet. I don't think I will, but don't, count that out either. Jin's story, I feel like, again, I have an imperfect knowledge of Japanese samurai cinema. There are outlaw characters that exist in that, but a lot of them are honor-driven, and they are driven by a set of specific moral codes. And it might be in law versus outlaw, right? Mm-hmm. In Jin Sakai's story, part of the reason why I find it so compelling is that this is somebody who begins the game by operating inside the law. They're operating as a samurai, and they are thinking seriously about the honor code. And what I think makes Ghost of Tsushima so fantastic is that he becomes an outlaw because he believes that the justice, and it's not even just personal justice, right? He believes that the justice for the people of Tsushima exists outside of legal parameters, which is mm-hmm. why he becomes the ghost. So yeah, to me, I guess the point that I really want to make here is Ghost of Tsushima feels a little bit more like traditional Japanese samurai film. And we see a bunch of that, don't get me wrong, in Ghost of Yōtei. But Atsu as a character, she does remind me a little bit more of the Western outlaw. And this isn't a problem. This is just an observation because there is so much shared DNA. Like you shared like a fistful of dollars. There's this lawsuit going on there. But again, it makes for a compelling story, really. I think is the final point that I want to get out of this. It makes Atsu somebody that you want to play as because you want this justice.
also think that like because Atsu and because like the greater story of Ghost of Yōtei, I think like fits into a formula that we know pretty well. That I wasn't like blown away by things that happened in the story. It was things that like you might have expected that were just done pretty well. So I ended up having like I was pulled along by the story, and I ended up like I remember finishing Ghost of Tsushima and like being fucking like just having like an adrenaline rush and like being angry at like the way things turned out.
Yeah.
And I remember like I rolled the credits, I went through and I slaughtered all the rest of the Mongol camps in that game after the credits rolled. Yōtei didn't give me like that kind of thing, but it's a different type of story. I would say that like I came out of it feeling like I've seen this story before, but it was done really well to a way that's like I'm not mad at it, that it's not reinventing revenge stories here. Like you don't have to, as long as you execute on the thing that you're doing pretty well. And it's not like a beat by beat copy of another movie I've seen or something like that. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that I tell students, Dave and I both teach, right? Something I tell students is that, guys, the hero's journey has been around for millennia. There's a reason why we keep telling that story, As much as I think people want to say, oh, well, that's just a hero's journey, like it's unoriginal, uninspired, whatever it is. Folks, a lot of these stories are formulaic because they're stories that we like, that we find relatable, or that we find inspiring, And while I'm not inspired to, kill everybody that's wronged my family after playing Ghost of Yōtei, that revenge story formula exists because when we have personal grievances, when we've been treated so unfairly in some way, I mean, you have a drive, oftentimes motivated by anger, for personal justice, where it's like, hey, that was wrong what you did, and now I'm left hurt and screwed. I'm going to do something about that, right? And so I do think that like this revenge tale, like you say, like it's not necessarily breaking new ground and making me rethink all the list of tropes with the revenge story, but was it a story well told? Did I enjoy it? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting to me that you've been on the show now 3 times, and this is our second revenge story, which is like, it stands out a little bit to me. We'll see what the next one is. Another revenge tale, perhaps. So some other things about the story that I think are interesting, maybe a little bit like more quick hitting stuff. They made a point, Sucker Punch did, to really include the indigenous population in Ezo in this, and kind of show how they're living in the land. Like everything's not great for them. And I don't feel like they're afraid to show like them being oppressed, basically, like by the Saito, clansmen or whatever they're called, but also like the land is like ruled, the law is put down by the shogun, and the samurai are still like ruling the place, and they're not great to the Ainu either. And they have a bunch of nice little touches in here, like the way that, I don't know if you noticed, the names of the Ainu characters are spelled in all lowercase letters, to kind of, there's a cultural significance to that I'm not fully up on. I'm not going to like make something up here, but that was a cultural significance. They found the way to kind of display that by writing out names in English like that. So their inclusion was something that I remember like pre-release, people were like, I didn't see indigenous people in the trailers. They were there at this time. Where are they? And they are here. They're pretty prominent. There's a couple of like very prominent Ainu characters in the story.
Yeah, I love this. I think one of the things that really improved between Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yōtei is I really felt like the breadth of Ezo, of the island that you're on. And what I mean by the breadth is just like, I like culturally, like in terms of who people are and what they're doing and what their problems are, like on a day-to-day basis. And, just like the everyday sort of politics of living there in like this moment of political turmoil where it's like, do you understand why some people might be in supporting the Yōtei 6 versus Lord Saito? No, sorry, not Saito, but the...
Versus the shogun.
The shogun,
Matsumae, the samurai.
Yeah, and why they're trying to escape both of those systems as well. Like, there's just so much nuance, and I love the inclusion of the Ainu for that specifically, because it was very clear that this was a people with a different set of cultures and values who wanted to be outside of these two, like, kind of total systems. You know, the Shogun and Lord Saito, they're fighting for control of the island and for total control. They're not looking for anybody to be outside of their power or vision. And so I just thought it was cool. Like, no, there are fractures and you know, systems of control and government, and some people want to live outside that. And it was just, I loved it because I just felt like I got a much better sense maybe of what life was like. Not saying, you know, this does, I don't know like to what degree this is hyper realistic or whatever in terms of cultural representation, but it was just kind of nice to see that, like, no, this is a nuanced world. There's a lot more going on here, and I have an opportunity to sort of feel and understand that.
Yeah, right. And you mentioning what like Saito's fighting for, so two things. The quick one is Saito's rebelling against the Shogun, and like, you know, how many Japanese stories do you need to experience, historical stories do you need to experience before you're like, oh, the samurai weren't like the good guys all the time. So like there might be a reason why someone would want to rebel against them. It gives a little bit of extra characterization to Saito, but the bigger thing is that like Saito himself, like the character, is a really good villain. And he shows up. Yeah. It's not like he's there at the beginning and then at the end. Like you meet him several times throughout the story. Of course, you meet some of his like top in command with the Yōtei 6, the others. But Saito himself, the performance is really captivating. Like he chews up scenes that he's in. And there's more to him than just like mindless killing, we'll say. Like you can pick up diaries from him all over the place, and they're like pretty interesting to read.
Yeah.
So shout out to another good villain here.
Yeah. There's that throw that on the list of things that Sucker Punch does really well. Another great villain, right? And this is a different villain with different motivations. And it's interesting because right now I feel like in terms of a lot of stories and storytelling, there's this interest in kind of like morally gray villains, right? Like, well, do I agree with them? Kind of. But at the end of the day, they're still villainous. And I think that's what I really liked about Lord Saito is that, honestly, a lot of times we want to support an underdog, you know, rebellion type of character and story. I mean, here, add this to the list of comparisons I'm going to make. I mean, Star Wars, right? I mean, we love we love supporting the rebels. Like that's how the story is framed. The rebels are the good guys. They're doing a good thing, right? In Ghosts of Yōtei, you have the rebels, but from the beginning, they're considered villains because they are personally villains to Atsu. And I love that because instead of like getting caught up in like Lord Saito's going to save us from the oppressive shogunate, right? Instead, what's going to happen is they might be just as bad. They might be bad in different ways if they have total control over this island. And so maybe they're not worth it either. And so that's what makes like kind of these sort of gray villains interesting is when they break this idea of like you're either totally good or totally bad. Maybe you're just bad in a different way. And that can still be interesting.
I think you can pick up a little bit of like why the samurai are not the best rulers from like some incidental dialogue from NPCs and stuff, but also like if you played Ghosts of Tsushima, you probably carry a little bit of that with you too, where you're like, well, the samurai are not like, they're not the best either. So yeah. I mean, like there's never any like anyone who's like supporting Saito because they're like, I think that he does things the right way. It's like, well, my life was worse before. And like, now I have, you know, people join up because it's like, well, I have food and I have, you know, something to fight for. So, you know, that's how he recruits people. So like you do have a little bit of, not like Saito's still like the most evil, but like there are layers to him beyond just like, he's not the emperor from Star Wars for another Star Wars comparison.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
There's layers. So, and a good performance again, from the English voice actor in my experience there. And then I think the last kind of point that may lead us into talking about the open world and the activities and stuff is, in comparison to Tsushima, one of the things I loved about that game is it had a relatively small like main cast of characters, and you had side quest chains that continued with those characters through the entire game. Like you would do like 11 side quests for like the archery master guy, and you go through his story, and by the end he was my dude. Like I love that guy. And you know, the couple other characters that had long running side quests like that. And Tsushima does like a kind of a more traditional thing where you have local side characters in all the different places you visit, and then you do maybe a couple quests, a short quest chain for them, and you have a menu screen for Atsu's, quote, her wolf pack. It's like a family thing and a gameplay thing, the wolves. But there is a lot more side characters that I think are given relatively equal importance in this game. I think I like this less than the way Tsushima did it. I preferred the tighter cast.
I think I'm a little torn, right? I think in Ghost of Tsushima, I absolutely agree. Like you really get to know these characters, you really get to love them, and you really get to understand them really well. There are a lot of characters, way more in Ghost of Yōtei. And because of Ghost of Yōtei is very much broken up into, I feel like it's fragmented into more hubs, right? And then like each of these side characters are assigned one hub, and it's kind of maximum 4 side quests that you do with them. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like you said, in Ghost of Yōtei, man, you're doing 11 or so. I don't know. To be honest, in Ghost of Tsushima, I would love to know what the completion rates were for, you know, and you could look at like trophies, I guess, percentages. Did people go... I feel like most people probably picked one character and that was it. They did all of their side quests. And maybe I'm speaking anecdotally. I don't have any information to back this up. So I think for like sake of ease in gameplay and just like the game aspect of Ghost of Yōtei, I appreciated that you could do 4 or 5 side quests and you had done everything for one particular character. Yeah. But I agree with you in the long run that like I liked a lot of them. I liked the majority of them, right? Yeah. But it definitely felt like a more transactional thing. Atsu, me, the player character, we're doing the side quest because of very specific incentive and benefit that is going to come from this. If that's an upgrade to a weapon, you know, something else, then
some money or information. That's basically all Atsu needs.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, it works with who Atsu is as a character, sure. But me as a person playing the game, if I'm really interested in one of these tales, I mean, they're much shorter and there's less juice there.
Yeah. And the result also is that, you know, those side characters that I met in the first zone or the second zone, 30 hours later when I'm finishing up the game, I don't remember them. Like you could tell me names, you could maybe even tell me like what you did in the side quest, and there's a good chance I don't remember it. And that's I mean, I still remember the storyline of the archery master in Ghost of Tsushima. That shit was 5 years ago that I played that, and I haven't thought or talked about that quest until tonight. So, like, I think those things stick with me, and I think I appreciate the kind of relative leanness a little bit more. And that's, I mean, that dovetails again into talking about the way the open world is designed and the way that this game is just full of stuff. So to kind of set the stage again, visually, this open world and all the different areas that you go to, because there are, you know, there's some kind of swamplands, there's some plains, there's a bunch of beaches, there's, you know, the north where it's really cold and snowy. All of these areas are gorgeous, like screenshots for like filling up my hard drive, like absolutely gorgeous skyboxes, like look off in the distance and see smoke from a campfire, and you look up and you see the stars, or like during the day. It's always, it's always windy. They got like a real maximalist thing going on with like the wind and the plants and flower petals blowing up in the air and stuff like that. But it's gorgeous. It's like every place is an absolute treat to look at. And it's like, this game will not let me appreciate it, because it's like, all right, man, you're sick of looking at those trees. Like, why don't you go grab that bamboo over there? And then now that you're done grabbing the bamboo, the bird is here, and the bird's going to lead you to a shrine where you can get an upgrade point. And then once you do that, well, you probably picked up some stuff along the way. So time to go back to the blacksmith and see if you can upgrade your armor. And it's like, man, I would have slowly walked through this field of flowers if you let me. Like, I mean, I don't want to say like I'm different than who they're making the game for, but like, I kind of feel like I have different priorities here. Like, I loved how Red Dead Redemption would just leave you the fuck alone.
Yeah.
For like whole minutes at a time. You just walk through an empty desert and just admire how good the sky looks. And this game will not leave you alone. And I really think that there's this clash between how pretty everything is and how much I want to soak in it and luxuriate in it. And like the game design people that are like, you got to give this guy a fucking treat. He's going to freak out. You haven't given him a treat in 30 seconds. Like, he's going to turn the game off. Like, it feels like they're terrified that I would ever have a minute to myself, which it sucks. I think it's terrible.
Nice. Let's see.
It was a lot. I'm sorry. I dumped a lot on you there.
No. You're good. You're totally good. It's funny. I just was not, like, I don't disagree, but I was just not nearly as bothered by this in my playthrough. I mean, reflecting on my playthrough, one of the biggest changes, I think, for me in terms of game design from Ghost of Tsushima to Ghost of Yōtei is where all of this stuff is. Like you said, like getting an ability point from a shrine, that might mean a climbing puzzle, that might mean clearing out a camp, that might mean, I don't know, something else, right? But the fact is that this game is not Assassin's Creed at all. The Assassin's Creed DNA is still there, but I think it's much less. In that I'm not going to fortification camp to camp, finding a way to break in, starting off stealth, killing everybody, and then looting the thing until there's nothing left. There are moments of that, but they're way, way less. And so it is shocking to me that the game is like, go explore. I mean, that to me is enough to say, go explore this beautiful world. If you're like, you tell me from the early onset of the game, hey, all these ability upgrades and weapon upgrades that you want, they are out in the world. Go find them. Go get them. And one of my favorite mechanics that they do here actually is the cartographer.
I was just going to say, so the thing that saves this from like Witcher 3 overload is that you don't have all this shit on your map all the time. You have to buy the maps from the cartographer, and then you have to like, figure out where this thing is on this like map that's barely filled in. And then you're like, I have a point of interest, but then you're like riding to that point of interest, and it's like things coming at all sides for my attention. And it's like, man, I want to climb up the cliff. I want to go, see the vista out onto the seaside and stuff like that. So anyway, that's cool. I like the cartographer too.
Yeah, I like the cartographer because I think some people might find it cumbersome. I liked it because it allowed me to be really selective about what it was I wanted to do. If it was like, I want upgrade points, and oh, look, I have 4, maps to find upgrade points. Let's do this. If I want to increase my wolf companionship, okay, oh, look, I have 2 of them. Let's go do this. If I want to do bamboo cuts, whatever it is, I could figure out a way to kind of put those on the map and focus on those. And I started, I think, my playthrough doing this, but I ended up kind of buying into the game design and not doing it. But I would just pick one of those map points, the one that was like furthest away, ping it, and be like, let's see what's between here and there, which I think is a really great way to play this game. But as you're saying, what's between here and there is a lot, and you are made very aware of all the different things that you can do between here and there. Whereas I personally would have just preferred more environmental cues. Oh, there's smoke. Oh, I see a fire. Oh, let me just ride over there. It's going to be a 20-second ride. Let's see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And again, I think the comparison to Red Dead Redemption 2 is apt for this. One of my favorite things actually in Red Dead Redemption 2 were the legendary hunts. Mm-hmm. And I loved hunting in that game because it was, hey, you know what? Why don't I hunt a deer on the way from this side quest or main quest I was doing as I'm riding back to camp? Let me just hunt something and bring it back to camp, and then I can get the materials from it, and I can kind of progress the game. And it was a great way to do something off the critical path that made me feel immersed in the world and engage with the game systems and just kind of live in what I was doing and feel like I was contributing not only to the main character, but like to the camp and what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I think something like that in Ghost of Yōtei would have made me appreciate riding from place to place much better because it is so beautiful and cinematic. But yeah, there's a lot of crafting materials pulling you one way or another, and yeah, it's like an alarm clock that just kept beeping, I think sometimes.
Yeah. I did a little bit of reading. There is a kind of like fabled 40-second rule from the development of The Witcher 3, which basically says, within 40 seconds, the player has to have something to grab their attention or to, something for them to do or something like that. And I want more credit. I want people to give us more credit than that. There's two things about this that I think should not be in this game. I think it would have solved basically all of this. The first one is that bird, which is just always fucking showing up and chirping at you that there's something nearby, and it's like, man, I'm riding to something already. Like, I already got a goal. I don't need something else. You can turn that bird off in the settings, and when I tell you the weight that was lifted when I turned that bird off, I would almost be exaggerating if I said what was on my mind. So turn the fucking bird off. It's terrible. And then the other thing is, I don't think this game needs crafting materials all over the goddamn place. Like, I liked the way that it was in Ghost of Tsushima, where you pick them up in camps, and it's like, well, yeah, the Mongols are hoarding materials, so I get my materials by stealing from them. Yeah. And it would have worked just fine in this game to steal from the Sakai camp or the Saito camps as well. I don't need to pick up a bamboo thing every 10 seconds as I'm riding through the forest. Like, it also, as you're going through like main story, like walk and talk scenes, those crafting materials are fucking blinking at you as you're walking through. Yeah. I'm supposed to be paying attention to what someone's saying as we're like scaling a cliffside about to infiltrate a castle. And it's like, but Dave, you know what you want more than to listen to this guy? You want to pick up that copper ore over there. You want to go grab that. It's so shiny, dude. You really want that. And I know that they have some kind of like system to populate those ingredients around. It wasn't like meaningfully placed there, I don't think.
Right.
But it's distracting. And like, I'm pretty anti-crafting materials in this type of game anyway. Like, I think it's cheap. I think it's cheap engagement good job, Dave. You picked something up. You collected something. Don't you feel good about that? Like, I think it's cheap shit like that. But I think that getting rid of those or scaling them back to the way they were in Tsushima and turning that bird off, it would have solved a lot of this stuff, because a lot of the other stuff is kind of emergent, like raiders on the road. You avoid them or fight them, but they're out there. Or the Ronin, these other outlaws that are out there. The camps that you come across, like they're there, like you might just stumble across them. They're not yelling at you to go, come over and do this camp. I really think those are the two, the crafting materials and the bird. Get those out of here. They're really subtractive for me personally.
I would say on the crafting materials, this is me speculating. So please, nobody write this, okay? I'm speculating here. But because you're right, like the game design in Ghost of Tsushima was all the incentive was in the camps, in the Mongol camps. That's where you get all of the crap or the majority of the stuff that you really want. Like, especially when it comes to crafting materials, it's there. And then, so what happens if in your game design, you reduce those down to 20% of what they were in Ghost of Tsushima? Where do you put the crafting materials? And I feel like this is a hyper correction again from the game, because I understand that game design problem. In Ghost of Tsushima, I always felt like I had less materials than I needed, especially towards the end of the game. It was very much like, okay, I need to go, take out a few Mongol camps so I can actually upgrade whatever the thing is that I want to upgrade. And then this is the hyper correction, is that, okay, well, we don't have as many camps that you raid, and the majority of them are optional, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so where do we put the crafting materials, and how do we make sure that players have enough? And so I think the solution here is exactly what you're describing as annoying, which is like, where do we know the player is going to be? Well, if they're doing a walk and talk mission, we know that they're walking and talking for 5 to 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. What if we just put in a neat little line all the crafting materials and more that they could possibly need right here? And I think it's a very inelegant solution. I agree. It was funny because many times I'd be like, oh wait, that's Shinobi Steel. I know I need that. Yeah. And so I walk over and I'm getting it. Somebody's shouting at me, and suddenly they're like, hey, don't lag behind. Or they're like, oh, we're going this way. The game's way of telling you that you're like off track and you need to get back on the railroad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but dude, there's like 5 freaking Shinobi Steel over here. You telling me I'm not supposed to go get that right now? And so that's where I felt the frustration is, like, when the game explicitly was like, Atsu, get your butt over here. And I'm like, no, there's a bunch of flowers right there.
Yeah.
And I know I want this hat design. Quit, get off my case. Quit, stop nagging me. I'm trying to get my materials. And so, of course, I'm armchair deving a little bit here. I don't have a better solution, but I can say as a player that the solution felt inelegant.
Yeah. I think if this game was not as pretty as it is, and if it didn't inspire me to want to soak it in, it might not have bugged me so much. But I really felt a clash between the part of me that's like, I want to take a walk through this forest and enjoy the sounds. Sound design, environmental sound design is incredible, as you may expect, just like everything else presentation wise. Yeah. I want to take a slow walk through here. And then there's that part of my gamer brain that game developers know how to manipulate, where they're like, give him treats. And I feel like those clash in this game more than in, if I replayed Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something like that, like, that's a pretty game too, but it's not Ghost of Yōtei pretty. Like, I'm not inspired to take a slow walk on the beach in that game. So I might not feel it as strongly, but I do think I'm feeling a shift in like what I want from games like this, what I want from upgrade materials. I think that I'm shifting pretty far in a direction of like, I either want to have to go out of my way to get this stuff, like in Tsushima, I have to earn it. I have to take out a camp if I want that shit. Yeah. So take out the camp, engage with the combat and the stealth systems, take out the camp, or make it more meaningful but less frequent. Like, make those things real rewards. It's not a reward to pick up some bamboo in this game. Make it a real reward to pick up a Shinobi Steel, and then make me get 5 of them to upgrade my sword, not 50. Stuff like that makes me appreciate picking that stuff up. And I will be like, holy fuck, there's some Shinobi Steel. I need to go get it if it's meaningful to pick up every single one. Whereas in this game, I just kind of hoover up everything, and then I get the little ping that's like, you can upgrade your katana now. And I'm like, oh, cool. I must have gotten enough. Let me go back to the forge and upgrade my thing. It's not really, it feels good to upgrade your swords and stuff. Feels great. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But it just kind of happens. It's not like a result of any one thing that I did. And I think I prefer it to be the result of a thing that I did. Maybe make me do a quest chain for the blacksmith. And then at the end, he's like, hey, you know what, Atsu? Give me those dual katanas. I think I can do something with them. And then I earn that shit. I don't know. I'm just souring on this in general. And frankly, I think it takes a pretty special game to make me really appreciate littering the world with pickups like this. Like Breath of the Wild, like we talked about before. Every single one of those pickups, I'm gonna make some food or a potion or something out of those.
Yeah.
Or in Elden Ring, like that solves the consumable problem in From Software games is you pick them up around the world and suddenly I'm not so worried about using all my fire bombs because I got a bunch of stuff to make more of them. And like, did you ever have to craft ammo in this game? Like there's a whole system here that's like, I shot people with arrows all the time. I'd never crafted arrows in this game.
I mean, and this is where I think, sorry everybody, but hypercorrection is the word that comes to mind. Because you can camp, and camping is, you can craft ammo at campsites.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost all that much material to do it. I think I crafted less than 10 times.
Yeah, because you can just find arrows everywhere too. Like it's a extraneous like system, I think, to put these crafting materials and a ammo crafting system in here when like you just, you take out a camp, you'll pick up more arrows than you can carry. So yeah, I mean, neither of us did a whole lot of this.
Yeah, I would say the crafting system, I really only cared about it with my favorite armor sets and the weapons. That's right. Why I really cared about it, because that's where it made the biggest difference, right? Just to talk a little bit more about the camping, I only cared about it if I was doing a main quest and I was low on resolve, because it would fill my resolve. And if there's a system actually that feels really superfluous to me in this game, it's the camping. You could stop and do some things, and sometimes somebody will sit down and chat with you. You could like eat salmon, and it's great because there's like this running joke of this game that Atsu really sucks at cooking.
Yeah.
And which honestly, all she eats is like campfire cooked mushrooms and salmon. So everybody's right. She doesn't even salt that crap, dude. Yep. Like it's awful. And like the camping to me was like, it felt like a tack on. Like it wasn't, I think, rewarding enough to do all that often. While I was doing it, it felt like a watered down version of Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, kind of forging and crafting moments. I think maybe there was, maybe there's a gamer out there that really enjoyed those peaceful moments at the campsite. That wasn't me. I was way more interested in just killing people and getting revenge. And I felt like, I don't know. I really just, that was probably the low for me. The lowest low in Ghost of Yōtei for me was probably the campsites. I just rarely even did it. I got sick of it.
I think, so I like the campfire, or I like the camping story scenes, or like if you're doing a bounty and it's like, you got to camp here to draw out the guy because he preys on lone travelers or whatever. Like, I like those. And I like when they camp in the story because there's some good characterization. Like, Atsu always sleeps with her hand on her sword, or like, the first sign of movement, she reaches for her sword first, like good characterization stuff.
Yeah.
As far as gameplay benefits, you get all the benefits from camping you get by just like fighting a couple guys anyway. So it is superfluous in that way. I think that this, is a result of the game not selling you on the benefits of slowing down the way that I camped all the time in Red Dead Redemption 2 because I was role-playing Arthur taking a break. Like, Arthur's not going to ride his horse through the night. He's going to camp. He's going to eat a can of beans and, have a fire and chill and relax and look at the stars and whatever. And this game didn't sell me on that as a thing that I would be doing, probably because the game never let me slow down in any other instance. So why would I take the one thing they're like, don't you want to like sit down and play the shamisen and, cook the mushrooms and stuff? And I just didn't really. So I think that that's two parts of it. Like the gameplay benefit of it's not strong enough. And also the rest of the game design is telling me, don't slow down, go pick up all that stuff, stay busy, don't get bored, So Now you mentioned that what you wanted to do was to keep on moving, fighting, and killing. So let's talk about what it's like to do that. think the core gameplay of this is pretty similar to Ghost of Tsushima. Taking out a camp often involves hiding, stealth for a while, get as many stealth kills as you can until they find you, and then you have a big brouhaha. I've never said that word before. I don't know why it came out in this recording. You witnessed history here, Jake. I think that while it's not like the deepest stealth system, I like stealth games like this. I like crouching in tall grass. I like jumping through windows. I like, prowling on rooftops and stuff like that, getting the stealth kills, upgrading in this game so you could get 2 or 3 stealth kills in a row. I like it. It's fun. And then it all goes to shit eventually. And I don't know about you. I think that the combat in this game is best when you're fighting a bunch of dudes in a camp.
Let's see. I really enjoyed combat in this game. Just to get that out there. I really enjoyed it. I loved it in Ghost of Tsushima. Obviously, the biggest change is that you're trading out stances for weapon types.
Right.
I think as you do that, weapon types are pretty uneven, right? Because
I think there's a couple too many.
Yeah, I agree. I think they, each weapon is going to operate differently. You're going to pick your favorites. And there is a bit of rock, paper, scissors going on here, right? Yep. Where it's like, okay, you want to use this weapon in the scenario. And the game reminds you quite often. I was actually kind of shocked at how often it reminded you. It's like when up against a sword, use a sword. It's like if they draw a katana, use your katana. And I was like, why am I being reminded so often about this? I don't know. Whatever. Just a side comment there.
No, I agree.
It was weird. Okay. Not just me. I appreciate the validation.
No, I'm with you there.
And this is why one of the reasons why I love Ghost of Tsushima so much is because you are given dozens of Mongol camps of a variety of difficulty. And it's like, all right, sandbox time. How are you going to take them all out? Yep. What are you going to do? How are you going to use stealth? How are you going to use your consumables, etc.? This game has much less combat camps, but there's still plenty of combat opportunities. I don't know. I actually didn't use stealth all that much in this game.
Okay.
In part, and I don't think this is a spoiler, in part, but because one of your stealth abilities you get quite late in the game. Is that fair enough to say?
I'm not sure what you mean, but you can kind of choose, do I want to upgrade my stealth abilities? Do I want to upgrade my weapon attacks and stuff like that? So
okay, I'll leave it there. I mean, and you're right. When it comes to the different skill and ability trees that you have a way more flexibility over what you want to upgrade. And so I like that quite a lot because then it's like, well, if I really like these weapons, I really like using the Yari, for example.
Yeah.
Which is the spear. That was one of my favorites. And so I upgraded that specific tree pretty heavily. That one may have been maxed out first, actually, out of all of them. So yeah, stealth. Again, I didn't have the narrative impulse to be stealthy, so I invested a lot in parry armor and challenges, how many people I could kill in a string when I'm challenging people head on. Yeah, I think combat works really fantastic there, but I think some of the duels, and if the weapons are uneven, I would say the duels are even more uneven in this game.
Okay.
There are some duels that I loved. I was in it, my heart's in it. The adrenaline's going every single time. And that's where I liked combat best, with the duels that I felt worked really well. Some of the duels, and I don't know if this is just the timing when I approached it, what my toolkit was at the time, etc., but some of the duels felt like hot garbage, and I could not use my combat in a really effective way in those duels. And man, did that sting. So yeah, I guess just in sum, my thoughts are I'm a little all over the place with the combat in this game. On the whole, really loved the designs, the systems, and how they operated. But in specific scenarios, I felt like they suffered for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm. So I think the kind of improvisational combat that happens when you're fighting against a bunch of guys is when this is the most interesting, because everything is at play. All your different weapons are at play. all the like the parry system. I'll talk about that in a second, but that's fully in play. Picking up things off the ground and throwing them, picking up weapons that
Yeah.
enemies drop, throwing those, all of that is in play. And so it's really, I thought it was really fun to just kind of go with the flow when fighting like, 10 dudes at once and just kind of like, oh, that guy dropped his sword, pick it up, throw it at that guy, run over while he's paused. Oh, this guy's charging, so get out of the way, reassess, stuff like that. Constantly like making decisions, adjusting your plans on the fly. I really, really liked it. And I think this game, like Ghost of Tsushima, it's a common thing here. This game has an excellent power curve, I think, where like
Yeah.
it's tough to fight 12 dudes at the beginning of the game. By the end of the game, I was a fucking force of nature. Like
Yeah, man.
nothing could stop me. In a big melee fight, a bunch of guys versus Atsu, nothing could stop me. I had everything at my disposal. It was really fun. I took out all the camps in this game
Nice.
because I thought they were fun. I had a great time doing them. The duels, the duels and then the boss fights, by extension, they're duels also.
Mhm.
Much more based on this parry system, which is a little bit different from what I remember. I think they added in an extra thing in this game, but again, Tsushima was years ago for me.
Yeah.
There are 3 types of parries. There's 4 types of attacks. There's regular attacks that you just do whatever you want with. There are blue tint, like a blue flash will come up, and that means you have to perfect parry the attack or dodge. There's no blocking it. Red has to be dodged, and yellow is a disarming attack. So you have to use your own disarming move against a yellow attack. And I don't know if it's just the colors, the fact that it's color coded, or the fact that it is basically Simon Says, that this made the boss fights and the duels, while they are spectacular visually, they
Mhm.
look incredible. Every single one of them, and especially in the big boss fights, the environment changes. Like, it's really cool. And I know that this is what sword fighting is like, kind of, video game sword fighting. What else are you going to do other than a block and parry system?
Mhm.
But it's like, I'm just kind of waiting to see what color comes out. And then I press the corresponding button. It's Simon Says. And I think the thing with those duels that feel bad to you, and I had a bunch that felt bad to me, including most of the big story boss fights, is like, they get to a point where it's all blue and red and yellow attacks. You have to respond in very specific ways with very quick reaction timing. And there were some attacks I just could not figure out the timing for some of those blue attacks.
Yeah.
And so I just ate shit constantly. And it was like the time that I beat the boss, they didn't use that attack, so I didn't have to deal with it. It wasn't like I mastered it or anything. It's not very interesting, I don't think, in the fights. Like, I'm in it, I'm engaged, and it's really satisfying to pull off a big, perfect parry. The way
Yeah.
that they present that with the slowdown and stuff is awesome. But I am just waiting to see, and I am literally reacting to colors. And I think that there's something lacking in that a little bit.
I don't know if I mind the color system as much as I felt like when the colors flashed did not seem to line up with the telegraphing very well at all. And one of the biggest difference I noticed in the duels between Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yōtei is that Ghost of Yōtei had a lot more combo attacks coming at you.
Yeah.
And some of them would be like, honestly, there was definitely like visual information saturation at some points. There's one specific boss fight that I was like, this is not clear. This is pretty cluttered, and it's really hard to parse what's going on here. Therefore, I'm guessing part of the time when I'm, working through some of these combos. But I think the biggest issue for me is when a combo would have like blue attacks and then no color associated with it. Or like when it was like, you might have a string of 2 attacks with no color associated, and then suddenly it's a string of 3 attacks with 3 different colors associated. There was just something visually that was really hard for me to capture when those happened. And part of it was like, I think you could just block, not even perfect parry, but block any attack that isn't color coded.
Yeah.
And I couldn't ever figure out if sometimes the combo would break or not, or if it would continue.
Mm.
And this to me was super frustrating because if I could not determine if a combo was continuing, then am I safe to go for an attack?
Right.
Should I be, and it felt like it sometimes too, maybe you blocked instead of perfect parry to blue dot. And so the combo would branch into a new set of patterns that you have to dodge. Like if it was like punishing, if I fail the perfect parry on this blue attack, like the second blue attack in a string of 4 blue attacks, then suddenly I'd get followed up with a red attack and it's coming fast. And if I think I perfect parried it, or if I think I dodged it, but I didn't dodge it quite right and I'm getting a new string of attacks, then I just get absolutely wailed on by some red attack that I'm trying to parry and I can't. And it just felt like the telegraphing, the chaining of like conveying this information to me felt really muddy. And when I was supposed to land a parry in correlation of when the light turned blue, never felt consistent either.
Yeah,
and so
I don't think it is. I think it's like they flash it, and then the timing after the flash is varied on purpose, I think.
Yeah, and so to me, it felt bad when the combos were just not legible. And this is one of those things, and okay, I'm sorry. Add this to the tally of other comparisons to random things.
Let's go.
Elden Ring. I love Elden Ring.
We did it.
In Elden Ring, when you were up against a new boss, it was pretty memed pretty hard, I think, when Elden Ring came out, that they have these absolutely massive wind-ups and fake attacks, and then it's like a quick succession of attacks. And so the telegraphing is designed on your first few attempts at a boss to just make you roll 1,000 times because you don't know what's happening, and then you get absolutely annihilated with this combo. But the thing is like after your first 3, 4, I don't know, whatever attempts, you can read that attack and you can figure it out. And I felt like in Ghost of Yōtei, it got really hard to read combos because there were like too many permutations. And there was like an attempt to do like a big wind up attack and fake you out. Or was it actually you just did 3 non-colored attacks and suddenly there was a quick succession of 3 red attacks that I need to dodge or get the heck out of? And so I just felt like those combat patterns were really hard to discern. And so with some duels, I was like, this kind of sucks. I think I'm actually just going to use all of my consumables in this fight so I can force an interruption on the boss and then take him out on my own terms, versus learning that kind of that rhythm dance that you get with some of these difficult boss fights, where it's like, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to learn this. And by the attempt that I beat this boss on, I will have been hit twice because I have mastered the patterns of this attack. And it felt like that happened less often in Ghost of Yōtei than should have.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I finished a lot of boss fights with a feeling of mastery. It was just like, it was kind of messy. I mean, it kind of makes sense with the way people are fighting, but like, I definitely didn't get that sense of mastery, even if I took, 10 plus tries to fight, which I did some of these boss fights. There were a couple where it was like, it was too dark for me to see their weapon. Some of these take place in dark places, and that was a real thing that happened in several fights, including one major story boss, which like that takes a lot of the thrill out of the fight. If it's like, well, I can't fucking see, like, what do you want from me here? And like visibility is not an issue in a lot of places in the game. So like, it's not like, Dave, turn your brightness up. It's like, it's too dark. I can't see the weapon.
Yeah.
The other thing is like anytime there was a yellow attack in the middle of a combo, I never got it. It's always like they come out so fast and the yellow attacks take longer for you to counterattack. And I lost my weapon every time there was a yellow attack, unless I was like, shit, dodge roll out of the way.
Yeah.
I never got like the parry version, like the counterattack on bosses. If it's just like a group of guys and one of them has a big yellow attack, there's long enough to respond to that. But the bosses, I just think like the combat gets less interesting in the boss fights because it becomes all about the color-coded parry system. And I ended up playing because I ended up finding this easier. Despite things I've said about the parry system, I played with the bounty hunter armor that's like all about parrying.
Yep.
Because it widens your window for perfect parries, but then doesn't let you just do normal blocks anymore. I think that's how it works.
Yep.
But by widening the window for perfect parries, I could interrupt those combo chains with just one perfect parry. Instead of like, if I was wearing something else, it would have been a lot harder to figure out, like you said, like, when is my turn? When is it like, when are they done? And, with the perfect parries, you get like a big slowdown and stuff. So you're like, okay, I got that. I'm on the counter attack now. And I just found that a lot easier to read. And then as you upgrade the armor pieces, they all get their own unique perks and stuff. And I thought the perks for that armor set was awesome. So
Yeah.
I rolled with that. I think it's because it kind of simple. So it's like, I'm in this color-coded Simon Says parry combat. Let me just simplify this down with this armor set. And that's how I got through it. And I tried to switch armor sets and nothing felt great after that. So yeah, I'm of kind of two minds where I'm like, I don't like that it literally is kind of boiled down to colors, especially in the hardest boss fights in the game. It's all red, blue, and yellow attacks. I don't like that it's just colors, but I do think the combat's like pretty satisfying. When it's singing, it's really good. So yeah.
I ended up using that armor set for maybe half of the boss fights, and I would say that it was the best one. Because if you do get the perfect parry, if you do get the interrupt, then you can wail on the boss.
Yeah.
And you can get some resolve back or whatever it is to stay in the fight. I would say that they're out of all the boss fights, there was probably 2 that I walked away from feeling like I had mastery over what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other duels in the game, and I felt like those were much more aligned with the duels from Ghost of Tsushima. They still had, I mean, it was still the same system, but I felt much more of a flow than I did in some of the boss fights. And to speak in vague terms, I think it's just because of what unique abilities some bosses had.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Did you have a favorite weapon? We mentioned there's a bunch of different weapons, and they function as a like kind of a rock paper scissors. I can't think of an example right now. The Yari is good against dual blades. Dual blades are good against spears. I think that's how it works. Something like that. So it's like you see what weapon an enemy has, you're encouraged to pull out the corresponding weapon that's strong against that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, like, you don't have to follow it super strictly, and there are a bunch of like neutral weapon interactions too. So if you have a favorite, you can pull out your favorite.
The Yari was probably, I mean, I love just the regular katana. The Yari was a ton of fun because it got some abilities that would really give you an upper hand. And
the
would help with
ability with the Yari is you like kick dudes off of cliffs, like just get them out of the combat entirely.
Yeah, dude, I'd love kicking a dude over a cliff is always satisfying in a game, right?
Yep.
But it also had this great spin attack that I felt like with the right armor build, felt like I could build stagger on enemies particularly easily with the Yari. I did like the Kusarigawa or Kusarigama, which is they call it the Baron Owl. It's like this mace / mini scythe thing.
Yep.
It has 2 different essentially attack styles in one weapon. I found that one to be really satisfying as well too. So my top 3 would be the Yari, the Kusarigama. I would always say that one wrong, and the katana. Can I tell you my least favorite one?
Was it the Odachi?
Yep.
Mine, I think you just get it too late in the game. You don't need another weapon when you get the Odachi.
It looks amazing, and I felt like its slowness was never compensated for what it could achieve. And you got it late, and I'm already comfortable and have well upgraded other weapons. It was like, if I want to walk around slowly and look cool for a photo shot, sure, I'll pull it out.
Mm-hmm. I saw an Instagram reel or something the other day showcasing the animations of Atsu like sheathing and unsheathing all these weapons, and how it's like fairly realistic. Like the odachi is so big, but it doesn't clip through the scabbard or whatever it's called as she puts it on and takes it off and stuff like that. So like the attention to detail is cool. It looks awesome. You do get like a cool like shoulder bash attack that can like interrupt red attacks with the odachi. So like kind of nice, kind of changes your combat style. But I didn't use it because by the time I got it, I already had 5 weapons and I didn't feel like I needed another one. And so it was like, it's hard to integrate something that I didn't feel was necessary in the first place. I did pull it out because it is like, strong attacks with the odachi, they, you're chopping heads off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is like kind of brutally satisfying in that way, but I just didn't need it. So I think this is a good point for us to get into our kind of non-spoiler wrap-up thoughts before we jump into spoilers. We have a pretty cool story to talk about ahead of us. So before we get there, Jake, we always answer the question, who do you recommend this game to? Is there any particular type of gamer that you think would most enjoy Ghost of Yōtei?
Spectacle. If you want spectacle, if you want high production, if you want a fantastic photorealistic experience, it's very cinematic in the way that cinema feels larger than life because it's exaggerated, yet it still feels very at home, like it's the opposite of uncanny. It feels very much like relatable. This is absolutely a game for you. If you love production, technicalities and stuff, this game is just above and beyond. If you are interested in a lot of combat with a good story, with really tough, serious characters, this game absolutely is going to deliver in spades. If you love third-person action games, like this is the one to pick up from this year. Yeah,
that was well said. Agreed on all of those. I would add to that, if you like kind of formulaic, it sounds disparaging, and I only kind of mean it in a disparaging way, but if you like formulaic open world games, if you're not satisfied with the new Assassin's Creeds, which I hear are like pretty good, but like if they lost you along the way like they lost me, I think that this series does it a little differently. Like it still feels kind of similar in a lot of ways, but if you like open world games, if you like picking up stuff, if you like clearing camps, a lot of that stuff is fun. And, I've probably gone in too much detail about my criticisms of the open world design and just the sheer amount of stuff. But if you like a game that's full of stuff, if you like a really pretty open world, I think this appeals to you. And I guess the last thing that I'll say is, Jake, you and I, we talk about a lot of indie games on our shows, and you stream a lot of indie games. Both of us love indie games and all the things that they bring to the table. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with loving what a big high production AAA game brings to the table either, which is, like you said, spectacle, voice talent, like talented actors playing through like a very well-produced story, incredible graphics, incredible cinematography. Like those are the things that I would expect from a AAA, like high budget production like this. And Ghost of Yōtei is really good in all of those areas. So, I mean, I cover a lot of indie games on the show, and I like my game of the year for 2025 list is like mostly indie games. Ghost of Yōtei was not in the top 10 for me. There was just a lot more meaningful experiences that I played, but that doesn't mean that the AAA high production, Sony first party has nothing to offer to you, because they could not be further from the truth. Like these games have a lot to offer, and they have things that, the indies that we love generally can't offer or have a lot harder time bringing to the table. So
Yeah.
this is my soapbox I get on from time to time, where I hear out there like, AAA gaming has nothing. AAA is all bullshit. It's all microtransactions and live services. And it's like, man, there's a lot of really good AAA games out there too. Like, just because a company's large, just because of the budget's large, doesn't mean the games don't kick ass sometimes. And like, that's my soapbox for today for that.
Yeah, I think I'll step on a similar soapbox here. So yeah, my favorite game of 2024 was Arco, which is about as indie as it gets. Four people from
right.
Mexico making a game.
Yeah.
But probably my second favorite game from last year was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is about as AAA as you can possibly get. And I just think that the team that made Arco was never in a million years going to make Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Right.
But also Machine Games was never in a million years going to be able to make Arco.
Yeah.
So as much as I love indie games, those indie studios, they are positioned primarily financially to make specific types of experiences that are simply outside of the realm of what AAA games are able to accomplish with bureaucracy. Whereas, man, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I loved that game.
Yeah, that game kicked ass.
That game was awesome, and that was the team. I mean, very much so, I think. That was the team to make that type of a game, and they pulled it off beautifully. So I'm with you. I've evened out, my hipster roots make me want to just defend every single indie tooth and nail. But I think the reality is that different studios are primed or positioned to make different types of experiences. And if you want something that only Sucker Punch can deliver, man, Ghost of Yōtei is that. Play it.
Yep. Yeah, it does feel like it's right in their wheelhouse. I have a lot of design critiques about the game, but there's no denying that the things that they do well, they do really well in Ghost of Yōtei. And this is what you would come to a big, PS5 exclusive high budget game for, is stuff like that. And they deliver on it. So nothing wrong with that either. So, all right. Well, a little bit of housekeeping before we get into spoilers. Now, I've set you up really well to talk about the pre-order bonus, because the pre-order bonus, you get both sides of this. You've got an entire series where you do the indie impressions, talking about your indie games. And then you've got a lot of the games, not all, but a lot of the games on the main feed with Cameron, where you're talking about the big AAA releases. So tell the people about the pre-order bonus and all the other stuff that you do and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm a pretty busy guy these days. So the main bread and butter, what I've been doing for the longest is being a co-host of the Pre-Order Bonus podcast. We are coming up on 6 years of doing this podcast. And so we have a pretty massive library. We're pretty close to episode 250. And we've talked about all sorts of games. Like David said here, they typically tend to be on the higher end of the budget. Some AA, and some indie games will squeak their way in there as well too. As part of the Pre-Order Bonus podcast, I do a mini series called Indie Impressions. It's exclusively indie games, and typically those are much shorter episodes. They're about 20-30 minutes. They're much longer if I have a guest and we're talking about whatever indie games are coming out and which ones we've played. I also stream part-time at twitch.tv/chipdip18. It's a pretty fun time in there, folks. We do a lot of Lord of the Rings trivia. Trivia. But stop in there if you're looking for somebody to follow, if you're looking for somebody to play indie games while you're working. And then as of this year, I have started writing written reviews for so many games. Yeah. And I highly recommend you check them out. I'm a really big fan. I've got a bunch of colleagues in there that are really fantastic. One that you all might know fairly well. But it's a lot of fun going in there. And I love that outlet because we tend to cover really high profile indie games, which means we get to talk about them. And so that's all that I am doing in the world of games. Pretty busy. You can find me just about anywhere when it comes to gaming content. But if you're interested on finding me on social media, I'm exclusively on Blue Sky. And so you can find me as Chip Dip, because I managed to get a username without numbers, which I feel like is rare in 2025, Well,
you had to be early to Blue Sky, I think. But, I think a lot of us were. So,
yeah. So it's just Chip Dip there. But that's where you can find me. And that's where I'm active.
Very good. Well, like you said, you're doing a lot of stuff. All of it's worth checking out. We've talked about the pre-order bonus on the other times you've been on the show, but it's a great podcast, one that I listen to a lot and one that I've been lucky enough to guest on a few times. And if people want an indie impressions episode, I most recently got a chance to talk about Rain World on there,
Oh
which
my
I thought was a
gosh.
lot of fun.
Yes.
So go check that out. And then, yeah, you and Cameron are awesome on the show. A great dynamic between the
Thanks.
two of you. Great. You two both bring different like skill sets to the conversation and knowledge bases to the conversation too, which
Mm.
is really good. So check out the show. And then I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet, just like hasn't come up except in the Goodnight Universe episode because I wrote the review for that for So Many Games.
Mhm.
I've had the chance to review a couple games over there too, and really recommend checking out and supporting. God bless Jason for organizing all of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But all the different talented writers, you may know several of them from the Tales from the Backlog community, from our podcasting community. There's a lot of great people covering, large and really small indie games. There's a lot that come up where I'm like, I've never heard of that. Like, very cool. Someone's taken the time to play and write a thoughtful review about it.
Mhm.
So I'll make sure to put links down in the show notes for the pre-order bonus, for your Patreon where people can find the indie impressions. And then for So Many Games, people can check out your written work too. And
Thank you. Yeah.
of course, and I did most of my plugs at the top. I've been talking for a while. My brain is emptying. So we need a break. We're going to take one, but we need one. We're going to take our break. When we come back, it's going to be full spoiler time for Ghost of Yōtei. All right, before we get to full spoiler time for Ghost of Yōtei, I would like to say thank you to the patrons who help support the show over on Patreon. That's where patrons live. A big hearty thank you goes out to Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Vicori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rigamort, Silk Canet, Levi, John E., Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, Aaron, Squill, Alan Kress, Doug T., Retro Overdrive, One of Many Tots, Magic Crow, Pie Boy, Offshore Meteor, Curly Bright, Ian L., Steve Yeager, Trash Dog Actual, Matthew Maloney, Delaney and Jack McBride, Ethan Young, and many more. These fine folks have all gone to patreon.com/realdavejackson to kick me a few bucks a month and help support the work that I do, and in return, they are getting some treats and my everlasting love and respect. If that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, once again, head on over to patreon.com/realdavejackson for more. And with that being said, let's get back to full spoiler time for Ghost of Yōtei. All right, we're back. It is full spoiler time for Ghost of Yōtei and the customary disclaimers. We are going to kind of go in a Yōtei 6 member by member like walk through the way that Atsu does, because I think that's the best way to approach the journey she goes on. However, I'm not going to hold us to saving talking about the ending until the end of the podcast. So just if you haven't played, if you don't want to be spoiled, go finish it, come back. We'll be here. Jake and I will still be here in this recording room waiting for you. So that's the general thing. And then I'm not going to talk about every side quest. There may be a cool side character you like that I don't talk about. Apologies if that's the case. So with that being said, let's kind of walk through Atsu's journey. We talked a little bit about the snake, but that's the first one. The one thing I held back is maybe a little bit of like cinematic embellishment, but like Atsu comes back to life after she dies fighting the snake, right? So I don't think that there's something supernatural in the story. I think it's just a cinematic, like, she willed herself back from the brink and
Yeah.
came up and spawned the legend of the Onryo. But it's presented as if, like, the hand of God touched her, like, not literally, but,
Yeah.
she's brought back to life by some other force.
Yeah, I love that they did this actually. So Ghost of Tsushima is not very supernatural at all until
Right.
you get to the Iki Island expansion. There's
Mm.
some kind of supernatural stuff going on
Oh,
there.
real quick, let me just say,
Oh, whoops.
we might spoil all of Ghost of Tsushima in this section too. I just want to throw that out there. We'll talk about the end of Ghost of Tsushima in this spoiler section because there is a connection. So sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, just to get that out there for everyone.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was ready to go, and that's a very fair thing I think to bring up.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's all fair game, right? I know I love this because one of my favorite things about Ghost of Yōtei when it comes to storytelling is what it really did with myths and legends.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think, one of the coolest things is how do myths come to be, and how does like the inexplicable get explained and passed on from generation to generation to like grow into these very larger than life stories. And so right at the beginning, like Atsu should have died. Like Snake kills her, and then she somehow comes back. And it works in a very like ludonarrative way. I know that's a scary word because it has a lot of baggage. I'm sorry. I like it. I think it's a helpful word.
It's a good word.
It's a good word, right? But I really like it because you use, this currency called resolve whenever you're hurt to bring your health back up. And so much about this game is about this protagonist that will not stay down, that will always get back up again. And so to start this off with like, this is somebody who's coming back from death or the brink of death. It gives you that in-game explanation as to why you can keep, attempting things over and over again, why you have resolve, but how she becomes mythologized and how she creates this sort of legend as the Onryo. Yeah. And so I love that from the beginning. What it means to be the Ghost of Yōtei is significantly different from what it means to be the Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes.
And she is going to be a legend. And she, it's foreshadowed because there is one chain of side quests that's tied to legends and storytelling. And this is somebody who Atsu becomes quite familiar with. And so from the get-go, I just love that they're like, okay, narratively, this is not actually just Atsu's revenge story, but this is sort of, zoom out. This is also a story on the creation of legends and the creation of myths and the creation of kind of cultural values around those mythologized people.
Yeah. Think of it from the perspective of, we'll say, like, not highly educated people. When they see something they can't explain, this is how supernatural myths are born. They attribute it to anything that could explain what's being seen, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we have so many of our, so much of our folklore is like someone saw something they couldn't explain. They didn't have the knowledge to, come up with a more realistic explanation for it. Therefore, it's a mythological creature, or it's,
Yeah.
something like that. So these people, they see Atsu die, or what they think they see her die, and then get back up. Well, that means that she's this mythological, vengeful spirit that cannot be killed until her, until her vengeance is seen through to the end, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wonderful. And I just, like, I'm kind of going to be repeating myself here, but I love how it sets up this character, right? This is somebody who is so driven and motivated by getting revenge on the Yōtei 6. That she starts this game as an underdog, even though she has gone back to the main island and she's fought in countless battles and, served under a lot of different samurai and developed a lot of opinions about those samurai. Like, this is somebody who is just beyond. There's something about them that is just more than your average Joe out there on the battlefield. And so I love this. It made me buy in, I think, a lot more into like her revenge story, just thinking, okay, this is a legend. We're going to watch a legend develop here.
Yeah. I think this is a good time. We can talk about it now. So you live the legend of Atsu, and then there is that side quest with the storyteller that takes you to the legend of Jin Sakai, the first shinobi. And I didn't clock it until I saw the symbol, the Ghost of Tsushima symbol, the two triangles.
Yeah.
And it's like a little ways into that quest, but and I didn't play the Icky Island DLC, so feel free to like fill me in on like what happens there. But Jin must have moved to Ezo at some point, or whatever Ezo was called at the time. I don't know. And he died there. And that's where his grave is. That's where his old house is. And you can find like some artifacts from his personal possessions from Ghost of Tsushima. And I also like this. This is a good point that was brought up. I forget where I read it. It was in a review somewhere, but Atsu's picking up on like the legacy that Jin started by like kind of normalizing some of these techniques and some of these weapons and fighting styles and things like that. Yeah. Atsu doesn't use poison, which was one of the big plot points in Tsushima. But she does, I mean, she throws bombs, she throws kunai, she does all manner of things that like a samurai wouldn't do. And Atsu's much closer to like following in the footsteps of like that win at all costs that Jin eventually landed at the end of that game. So there is like a through line of like, yes, you pick up, you find out where Jin went, and you find where he died, and you find his grave, and it's like, it's really cool. All that stuff is awesome. But, and like they bring back the music from Ghost of Tsushima too. That shit gave me chills. But there's also like Atsu is following in Jin's footsteps in a way. If you played both games, and if you make that connection with like the way they fight, and Atsu's kind of using things that Jin normalized, it's pretty cool.
I love that side quest because I always call my boy Jin because I just really grew to love that character.
Yeah, but
well, there's a few things that I loved about Ghost of Yōtei, and in addition to the myth that's created, you see the history of 100 years passing, and I think a big part of that comes down to this shinobi fight style. And something that you don't realize, I think, so much as you're playing through Ghost of Tsushima and what they built upon beautifully, I think, in Ghost of Yōtei is that Jin broke so many rules in such a, massive way that it literally made history. You start the game with pretty much all of the abilities Jin and, his friends and helpers give him throughout that story. You start with those. You start with the grappling hook. You can pull open, loose boards from walls. You can swing from place to place. Jin really made history, and out of all the different myths and legends that you come across, it's Atsu who is the one who's picking up the torch and really going with it. And so I think naming this game and making it this kind of distant sequel actually ends up fitting really, really nicely in terms of just how you can see how the history of Jin Sakai has impacted Japan and warfare in Japan. And then the other thing I want to say is I love this side quest. Same thing, got chills when I heard some of that music, seeing his armor, being able to pick some of it up and have it be something you equip. I love that you get this Stormblade as well too. From doing that side quest, which is one of the katanas that you can pick up from Ghost of Tsushima. It was funny because me being very, attached to Jin, I almost felt like, dude, this is disrespectful that you have some random looter from Lord Saito coming here, doesn't understand any of this crap, just wants to get the sword and get out. Yeah. And so that moment for me, I was playing less as Atsu and I was playing more as Jake, where I was like, no, let me put you in your place, man.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, dude, you don't understand any of this. You're not deserving. You don't get it, Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a really cool way also to kind of function as a capstone to all the different myth and storyteller quests, where it's like there are so many people that have these histories that become myth, but we also recognize through these stories how they've impacted history and culture, and it's just a cool celebration of individuals and what they come to mean, through the years.
Yeah, there's Jin is a legend within the world of this game. Like the Kitsune's like foot soldiers, there's notes and stuff about like trying to follow in his footsteps with the poisons that he made and stuff like that. In there, like if you read some of their notes in their hideout, they talk
Yeah.
about Jin, and they're like, it's a legend at this point. They're not sure if it's true, but they talk about it. And if you played Ghost of Tsushima, you're like, yeah, this is about the story of Ghost of Tsushima right here.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to do a sequel, and like, how could you do a sequel with Jin? What does Jin have left after the events of that game to do, right?
Yeah.
So like, this is a great way to incorporate that into the game. You're building out an alternate history of Japan at this point, but
yeah.
you are connecting it in a way that I think is really cool. So
I agree. Sorry to cut you off there at the end.
No, you're good.
I agree. I think for, an hour after learning that we weren't picking up on Jin Sakai's story, I was like, oh man, but I love Jin. But then I came to realize the same thing. I was like, dude, Jin's story, it's a full and complete story. I think any sequel, and I think this is the best decision that they made with Ghost of Yōtei, is like, it wouldn't have been worth it. I don't think it would have felt like, think of all of the, straight to DVD sequels where it's like, man, don't give me a straight to DVD Ghost of Tsushima, give me the Ghost of Yōtei, where they do a massive, I think, service in honoring and paying homage to Ghost of Tsushima. But no, this is also Atsu's story. Yeah. And it's time for us to focus on somebody else in a different era and what they're doing from that. Real briefly, I'll just say the Iki Island expansion is essentially much more psychological and supernatural. You're dealing with, I think, literally and figuratively, Jin's demons about who his father was.
Oh yeah, right.
And so it is quite a different story, and it very much exists in isolation, and I think it functioned incredibly well as a DLC, as like a 6-hour mainline experience. Beautifully done there, right? But yeah, I think Ghost of Yōtei, Atsu, especially after playing the game, I very much agree with the decisions they made there.
Yep, agreed. Okay, so back to Atsu's story. So
yes,
we talked about the snake. Next up for Atsu was the Oni. I don't have a lot to say about, because I think what's cool about the overarching story is how you start the game as like this fully formed legend, the Onryo. She's maximum tunnel vision, maximum motivation for revenge. And then the game kind of chips away at that in a bunch of different ways as you go. With the snake and with the Oni, she's still at maximum. And I love this scene. I guess like the one thing that really stands out about the Oni's story or their interaction is I love the scene when Atsu is like posing as, just a warrior or whatever in his castle. And she sees like the sword in his like collection, and she's like trying to hide the fact that she recognizes it, but he sees like that he figures out who she is because she reacts to the fact that he has this thing in there. And pretty much across the board, like all of the Yōtei 6, the snake doesn't because you kill him in the prologue, but like everyone else, they have moments like this where like they figure out who Atsu is, or like she announces who she is, and they return back to like their role in that night. They didn't all take turns pinning her to the tree. They all kind of did different things on that night. And then I'm trying to find the words to describe it, but like there's like room for these to breathe, like these characters to interact, and room for these interactions to breathe before it gets to violence most of the time. I guess that's how I'll say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they become less sort of faceless henchmen, speaking, about myths. This might be actually the reverse of what we're talking about with Jin and with Atsu, where these generals of the Yōtei 6, they are feared and they're terrible, and most of them have masks and you don't really know who they are. It's a much larger than life persona, but Atsu, she tears away at that, and through her you get to see who they are as the person. I think the storyline with the Oni is probably the best way to get introduced to this idea, where it's like, okay, now we're demythologizing these people, because literally, his mask gets broken and ripped off, and you see what his face is, and he's human, right? And you see weakness there, and then you initiate this boss fight. I think so that the Oni for me was much more of a plot device than a character, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think the Oni is, not a super developed character, but honestly, Oni's going to die pretty early on. That whole section of the game for me was much more about, and this is a massive spoiler, but we're behind the spoiler wall.
We're in the spoiler section. Yeah.
It's discovering Jubei.
Yeah. I don't think I said his name in the non-spoiler section. So if anyone's here with us, Jubei is Atsu's brother who got shot in that attack on their house, and was presumed dead because he got shot and then fell off of a tall cliff. Next to their house. So, you start the game and you assume, well, Atsu's parents are dead and her brother's dead. She has nobody. And then the first kind of chip away at this lonely, frankly, she's suicidal. She's going to finish this and then she's going to die. That's her plan.
Yeah.
And the first chip in this is her brother's alive. And it's not just her brother's alive. We learn later her brother has a family too. So it's like more and more chips and chips and chips and chips. But yeah, Jubei being alive is a big, huge reveal that throws a wrench in her plans. Like how are you going to be this, this wandering killing spirit with no attachments, no connections. And then it's like, oh, your brother's alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think their interactions, I really like Jubei as a character. I thought he was awesome. He very much is like, okay, I am going to follow the honor system of the samurai. That's very much where he is coming from and his primary motivation. This is somebody who is equally scarred by the events of the killing of Atsu's family. Obviously, they're siblings. And I just loved getting this other perspective on what happened that night and how it impacted Jubei and how it, this was maybe the other path, Atsu could have become, this, well, I don't know if she actually could have become as a woman, the samurai the same way. But there, at least she could have okay, for honor and for justice, I am going to formally within the law take down the Yōtei 6.
Yeah.
And so they are polar opposites. They very much have this cool, I think, sibling kind of back and forth. But at the same time, some of my favorite moments between them that take place in this section is when they both say, it's been years. We're siblings and we want to return to this kinship, relationship that we have. But at the same time, we're different people with different lives and history. And both of them at one point kind of disavow the other as well, who are you actually to tell me this right now? I think it's cool. It's a phenomenon that I'm thinking about as I'm an adult and all my siblings are adults now. It's well, I can't treat my little sister as a little sister the same way anymore. She's an adult, And so I feel like there's a lot of that similar confrontation in conversation between them. And so for me, that section of the game, the Oni kind of functions as this catalyst of, okay, how are we going to make Atsu deal with the fact that her brother is still alive and her brother is a very different person than her. And while they share some goals, it's not a perfect overlap of motivation and how they want to achieve those goals.
Yeah. So it starts out they reunite and they're like, well, we kind of want the same thing. We want the Oni gone. So they work together, but they're different goals and they're different sub goals within the big goal clash. And when there's adversity, it falls apart. They fail multiple times in their goals. They get to, the assault on the Oni's castle. all Atsu cares about is killing the Oni, but there's a bunch of imprisoned Matsumae there. Jubei wants to rescue them. That's what he wants the most. And they can't meet in the middle, or they can't try to do both at the same time. Like, I think Atsu just like straight up lies to him. Like, yeah, we'll take care of the prisoners for sure once the Oni's dead. And it all falls apart. And it ends with them, basically they clash too much and they break apart again. And like you said, Jubei's like, I don't fucking know who you are anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you may be my sister, but like, I don't know if I can trust you. Like, yeah, you're not, we are blood, but I don't know you. And so you're basically a stranger to me. And a lot of the continuing like sub storyline of the game is them working through that, reconciling, like trying to figure out how can we make both of these things work? Because like Atsu will never stray from the revenge path. So it's almost like, how can I appease Jubei and like try to do my best, but I am not giving an inch on this revenge plan that I have. And like the way that comes to a head later, which we'll get to, is it's a big moment. So I think they built up to that moment really well. Starting here.
I absolutely agree. I think this is a fantastic introduction. It's more conflict and it's more failure than success, like you said. And I think it worked really well to understand the psychology of Atsu. Man, at times I was like, dude, you're being manipulative, Atsu. Like, I feel like you're really kind of taking advantage of maybe position and resources of Jubei. Yeah. And I kind of was like, I kind of felt for Jubei. I was like, what do you do if your sister comes out of town, comes from the middle of nowhere, back from the dead, highly capable, unpredictable, and how do you kind of handle this, person in your life? And so I felt like we could understand the psychology of both characters a lot better. For me, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast episode here, this conversation, Atsu still feels a little flat to me here. I mean, we understand more of her psychology, but I didn't feel like there was a plot event that really challenged her. But then again, is this still exposition? Is it pacing? I don't really know. I really grew to love Jubei in this moment, but it was actually after this section with the Oni that I really started warming up to Atsu.
Yeah. So the next section is with the Kitsune, and this is the part where Atsu's plan really starts to run into like moral issues and like philosophical, like who do I really hate type of challenges. You mentioned something. I do want to like touch on it real quick. They do comment often about the role of women in the society and how Atsu will never have the samurai's like full respect.
Right.
And she, she's more than capable to be, as high as it goes in this local like samurai clan. She's obviously the most capable fighter of all of them. Obviously, that's not all that they care about, of course, but she says basically like Jubei's like, hey, you come join up with us. And she basically says like, bro, I'm a woman. They're not gonna accept me. So just straight up no from that. And then with the next main character that you meet, Oyuki, you get another woman's perspective with everything that she's been through. So not to go through the whole thing, but Oyuki is a local musician in the next area that you go to. And it turns out that she's more capable than your average musician should be. And it turns out that Oyuki was the Kitsune, one of the Yōtei 6 on the night that her parents died, but she's not anymore. And there's a new Kitsune. So this is a big challenge for Atsu because she befriends Oyuki first. Sees, obviously, this woman, she's all right. She seems like a good person, but she was complicit in the murder of my parents, but she's not that anymore. And she's fighting against Saito now. Like she's the new Kitsune sucks ass too, of course. So she's got this thing like, do I blame you? Do I forgive you? Do I hate the new Kitsune? Like, do I go kill the new Kitsune? I don't even know that person. Like, they weren't involved in the death of my parents. All the shit gets thrown in and like really starts complicating Atsu's revenge tale. This is where it got like, not to say it wouldn't have been fun, like popcorn fun to just be like, yep, taking them out one at a time, taking them out. But this is where it starts to get really like, oh, they're really throwing a lot of stuff in Atsu's way, not just like, physical danger. They're taxing her mentally too here in this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love this. What happens when, Atsu, the unstoppable force, she doesn't necessarily meet an immovable object in in the former Kitsune and Oyuki, but she passes right through her. Like she can't actually make friction or contact with her because she does not fall into this plan. Oyuki is a wonderful character because she is the opposite of Atsu. This is somebody who had something to prove as a woman, and Lord Saito, interestingly enough, will accept any capable fighter regardless of what their biological sex is,
Mm-hmm.
And so the Oyuki, she joins ranks with Lord Saito because she is incredibly capable, and she becomes the Kitsune. Unlike Atsu, though, she has a moment of moral wavering and I guess wavering in her loyalty on the night that Atsu's parents were killed. Because she was there, but she actually did allow, oh man, I'm blanking on it now, but I think she let somebody slip. She eased up on, she couldn't prevent, I think, the death of Atsu's mother, but she did make it a little easier for either Atsu or Jubei to get out of some of the worst of the potential fate of what was going to go on. I can't remember exactly, but she did something there. So she has this complicated moment, and after the killing of Atsu's parents, she, turns coat, and she decides that she's against Lord Saito and what he is doing and what it's kind of made her become. And which is why she's so invested and helpful when you first get to this region, the snowy region of the game, to track down the Kitsune and get revenge. So I loved Oyuki as a character. I thought she was expertly written, really well developed, and just functioned also as a really good character building moment for Atsu.
Yeah, I think that character building moment and the moral dilemma, or the choice, I guess, for Atsu was the most interesting thing for me. Like, you were there, you were complicit in this thing that took everything from me, but you're not that person anymore. So how dedicated is she to killing the people that she holds responsible? Because she never says, okay, Oyuki, like, you were not responsible for it. Like, she never gives her that. She forgives her in a way, and they move on after this, and they're partners and they're friends. But, this is the test. This is the first test. Like, how dedicated are you to this? Because the Kitsune is right in front of you, and you can beat her in combat. You do beat her in a boss fight. But you eventually, Atsu eventually decides and realizes that there are greater threats, and that this person here is not the Kitsune anymore. So it's the first time she ever thinks killing this person's not going to do anything for me. So we might as well team up, because the current Kitsune, he's the worst, and he's got to go. So we'll take that person out. So yeah, good section here, but it's just constantly chipping away at this with Atsu. And then we get the big bombshell after this that, like we said, Jubei has a family. He has a daughter named Kiku.
Yeah.
And Kiku absolutely idolizes Atsu. Like, she could not be more thrilled to have Aunt Atsu around.
Yeah.
Kiku's super cute and she's really impressionable. And she's like innocent. She's this young kid. She's grown up in the castle. Like she's been pampered as the daughter of like a samurai lord. And Atsu is like this like battle hardened, like blood all over her, type of character. But she really lets her guard down with Kiku. And this is another test of like her two identities. Like the Onryo identity is starting to like, it's not fading, but Atsu, like the person inside, is like rising up because like all the family that she thought she lost, she's either rediscovering them or she's building a new family, right?
Yeah.
With Jubei, with Kiku, and now with Oyuki. So this next section where you're going after the dragon and the spider, I love the inclusion of Kiku in here as this person who like idolizes Atsu, and Atsu's like, you can't see the real me, but also Jubei, you can't baby her. Like she can't stay in the castle her whole life. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling here. This is a really nice new introduction here. Another complication for Atsu.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good complication. Probably the biggest shock to me. And I need to ask you, how much did you learn anything about Kiku's mother?
I didn't. I assumed that she died a long time ago. I assume that's why she wasn't brought up.
So, okay, yeah. I was shocked for a game that has so much about gender norms and the role of women in the society. I was shocked that Kiku's mother, Jubei's, I'm assuming, wife, right? Wasn't ever mentioned or explained. And at this point of the game, to be totally honest, I was mostly mainlining the game because this is pretty late. And I was kind of done of doing just about every open world activity except storyteller quests and armor quests. Everything else I was pretty much done with at this point. So that really took me back. I was like, oh, okay. Now Kiku is a character. What I loved about Kiku is, man, she's a lot like Atsu when Atsu was a kid. And so you get a lot of flashbacks with Atsu and Jubei. And Atsu is pushing boundaries, pushing buttons, getting into trouble. She has no fear, no sense of risk, and this is Kiku. And I love this because, one, you have Jubei, who super scarred by this traumatic moment as a child, is doing what he can. He has wealth and privilege to raise a daughter in a world far from the childhood that he ever, that he had to live through. And, but man, his sister's spirit, whatever genes his sister got, his daughter has. Yeah. And so I think it's really cool to kind of have that family connection in there. And this is part of the reason why Kiku is like so excited to have Aunt Atsu around, because she's infinitely more interested in picking up and wielding a sword than she is in memorizing the symbolism of flowers, which is like this key moment in the game. So I liked having her. I liked that she was breaking the rules and helping out Atsu. I also really loved that there was a moment with Kiku where she realized that going around killing people actually is extremely taxing on a person and not all that cool. Yeah. And so there's this moment where she's like, and she still admires Atsu, but when she sees the Onryo side of Atsu, unbridled at one moment, I thought it was a cool character development moment for Kiku, for someone who's like, oh man, being the Onryo and just like straight up murdering many, many people, it's actually kind of a disgusting thing to witness. And she's like, I don't know if that's what I want for me.
Yeah, she's scared by it. And I mean, she's a little kid. She should be. She's scared by it. And so I like the furthering of Atsu's internal conflict. Like she was like super cool with the idea of like no strings attached, just full on violence. We're going to kill all the Yōtei 6. I have no connections to this world. And now there's like a kid in there, and she likes Kiku and Kiku likes her, and she like scares Kiku with that. So again, those two identities within her, like there's kind of caring side of Atsu that's been like by necessity kind of hidden for a while, is coming back up. But she will not stop on the revenge quest. And at this point, Kiku and what she thinks of her and everybody else, that's still not as important as getting the revenge. So
Yeah.
that was the part where they captured the spider, was where Kiku sees like Atsu's full like rage come out, and she kills like 30 people
Yeah.
like right in front of her in like a pretty gross way. That's the point in the game too where you learn this like ultra power up move, like the ghost stance, I think it's called, or something like that.
Yeah.
So like within the game too, like Atsu's like hit a new level of rage in this in this section that Kiku first sees. So I like that. And then it all comes to a head because they have this plan. They captured the spider. They're going to use the spider to catch the dragon. These are Saito's two sons, and they're going to kill them both. Saito and them kind of like see through this plan and take the opportunity to attack the castle. And so Jubei's home is in danger. All the people in the castle are in danger. And Atsu is put in this position through, where she was at the time, that she can either stay on the beach and fight the dragon and the spider, go after the revenge, or she can run to the castle and help defend the castle. Jubei has to go back to the castle. So literally Atsu has to make the choice between these two parts of her life now. What's more important to her? And I love what happens. She chooses the revenge. Like she makes the wrong choice because she is still so driven by this. And so you fight the dragon on the beach, you kill the dragon. The scene where she kills the dragon just dispatches him super cold.
Yeah.
Cold, looks at the camera, wipes the blood on the sash. It's really badass when she does it. But because she spent so much time doing that, the castle falls. Like she could have helped. And suddenly Jubei and Oyuki are presumed dead because they were in the castle when the castle fell.
Yeah.
And so she's left with Kiku. She finds Kiku, and Kiku's fucking pissed at her because she blames Atsu because her dad died, because Atsu didn't go help.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the consequences of my actions,
Yeah, this whole moment here was, I think, incredibly well done. It's a wonderful callback to the scene that we talked about earlier, storming the Oni's castle. It's like, well, are we going to save the samurai, or are we going to go after the Oni? And it fails then, and it failed again, Yeah,
because Atsu didn't learn, right?
Yeah, and this is, again, like I said earlier, this to me is a hallmark of excellent character writing and development. She is given the same decision twice about who she is going to defend and what she's going to do and how that defines her as a person. And you can still be an excellently well-written character by not changing. When you have these moments, it's like, nope, she's just going to harden in place and remain who she is despite the consequences, grit her teeth and try to deal with it. And so, and again, she fails. I mean, she kills the dragon. But the losses here, it's a Pyrrhic victory, right? Like so many people die, and people that suddenly she cares about are missing. And I loved this moment. For her, this was, in my opinion, this was her breaking moment. It was, wait a second, I just let Kiku down really badly. I may have just lost my brother all over again. What have I done with Oyuki, this person that took me forever to forgive, and somebody who has, coming like on their hands and knees begging for forgiveness? I've just kind of spat in their face, So it's a super cool reckoning moment for her. And I loved this moment. I thought it was exceptionally well done.
I think there's a really good, another reckoning moment when she brings Kiku back to their childhood home, and Kiku is like really pissed. And Atsu can like see the same anger inside of Kiku that she has. And she has this like moment of recognition where she's like, I cannot let this kid grow up to be like me.
Yeah.
And so then she swears to make it right, but like, it might be too late. We don't know. Like, I mean, it's kind of like, you didn't see Jubei and Oyuki die on camera, so they're probably not dead right now,
Yeah.
but you don't know. I mean, they might be being tortured or whatever. Like that's bad too. We don't want that.
Yeah.
So, but for her to have failed Kiku and then for her to see Kiku like being corrupted by this anger a little bit, and she's like, ah, fuck. And that's the moment for her where she shuts off. She doesn't shut it off, but like she's able to make decisions as like a rational person again after this. But it might be too late, and that's the cost. And I agree with you. That's why it's okay that Atsu keeps making the same decision, because the decision has consequences that she has to reckon with.
Yeah.
Again and again. And the consequences just keep getting worse. So
Yeah.
she goes out to find Jubei and Kiku. They were captured by Saito, but she doesn't know where they are. So she tracks down the spider who escaped. But because the spider got captured by Atsu, Saito disowns him and he's on his own. So there's another really good scene where Atsu goes and tracks down the spider. They have a good conversation and then they have a fight. And at the point where Atsu could kill the spider, she decides not to. She decides like, this guy's already fucked. Like his life is already over. So what good is all of this doing for me? There's a little bit of motivation for the Saito family that I don't think is particularly strong that they talk about here in this confrontation with the spider. And I was meaning to bring it up earlier. Like, so Saito went and killed Atsu's family because supposedly Atsu's father betrayed him. And the betrayal, the spider says, is because they had a baby sister who died because of Atsu's father's betrayal. Atsu's father's a blacksmith. I don't know how that connects. That was one of the things where I was like, I don't know, man. Like you could have just like, he could have just made him a shit sword one time, and Saito was like that's the plot of The Princess Bride. like I don't know, this thing with like why Saito went to attack, I don't think was very like uncharacteristically not well explained, in my opinion.
So from what I understand from the prologue is this really great moment because we see Saito out in the woods while you're playing as Atsu. She's out there with Jubei.
Yeah.
This is they are collecting mushrooms, and this guy comes along, and it turns out to be Lord Saito, and he teaches them how to, forage for mushrooms.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, thank you, nice man. My parents are nice people. Why don't you come over to our house and have dinner because you helped us out?" And then, unbeknownst to the kids, they end up leading Lord Saito to Atsu's father, whose name I'm blanking on. And Lord Saito's looking for this guy to kill him. Now, from what I understand from that moment is that Lord Saito feels betrayed because Atsu's father is one of the best swordsmiths around, and he refused or defected from Lord Saito's army or clan or whatever, right?
Right.
And so what I understood was that Lord Saito wanted to kill him out of anger and out of because he was disloyal in some capacity.
Right.
Which to me was great as is. And so I'm with you. The spider's like, well, your dad betrayed our family because of this baby sister. It's kind of, I couldn't tell if the spider had just believed some BS lie that his dad had taught him his whole life.
Oh, yeah, it could have been. Yeah, you're right.
Like that to me makes way more sense than it actually being factual for the same reasons that you're having issues with it, because it's like, whoa. What exactly was this guy? He's a swordsmith.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly, was he that close with Lord Saito that he was like, I don't know, godfather status or something over a child?
Right.
Like, it either needed to be, I think, more better explained, or I think there needed to be some sort of wink or tip off to the player that it was, in fact, the spider just being manipulated by his father into believing that there was some sort of justifiable reason to kill this guy, when in reality it seemed really petty from the beginning.
Yeah, Saito doesn't seem like the type of character that would need to lie to cover up violent intentions, you know?
Yeah.
Like he kills a ton of people all the time. And so do his sons. So yeah, I'm not buying that unless, you know, it's a lie that was not well signaled enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a big change for Atsu where she's kind of thrown aside the revenge quest because she doesn't kill the spider, doesn't seem worth it anymore. And also he has information. So he helps. The spider's also pissed at his dad. So he's like, fine, I'll tell you where they're being held. And then I'm going to disappear. Like there's nothing for me in this world. I'm gone. And so I don't know. I thought this further breaking of Atsu's best laid out plans was, you know, just one more step. It makes sense for her to spare the spider here. He's a dead man anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I liked it. It leads us to the true end of the story that Lord Saito was this villain all along, and he's the guy who is really responsible for everything going poorly. Back for her family, and even with people within the Yōtei 6, and for all these people on Ezo as it is. So yeah, he's cut the snake off. Cut the snake's head off. Right, that's the plan here.
Yep. Now in one of Atsu's most poorly thought out decisions, she left Kiku, a child, by herself at the house, as she decided to go across the whole island to go to Saito's fortress. Like Kiku's by herself at the house for a long time. You know, it takes a while to ride a horse across the island. So, surprise, she rescues Jubei and Oyuki, but Saito gets a head start and goes to the house where Kiku's by herself. So, not great planning, Atsu. Atsu's not a planner, I guess. But this sets up the confrontation with Saito, which I think is outstanding. So Saito, when you get there, Saito's just playing a game with Kiku. Again, like he is evil, but he's not the emperor, right? He's hanging out with the child. He doesn't want to kill Kiku. He threatens it, but Atsu he basically says, like, everyone else, Oyuki, Jubei, Kiku, you all leave. This is between me and her. And that's the deal for like letting Kiku go. And I'm not sure that this was like the most effective, but he does basically say, I took your family. Now you've taken my family. So here I am. It's time for us to settle this. It's not something that would ever make me be like, yeah, Atsu took away Saito's sons. Saito's sons had to go. They're dickheads. Like, you know, one of these is not like the other type of situation, but we do have a situation where both of them are like, fuck it, we got nothing. Well, Saito's like, I got nothing to lose now. Atsu does have something to lose now.
Yeah, this confrontation here, I don't know. For me, it was, as soon as she left Kiku behind, I was like, Kiku's screwed. Like, something's happening to Kiku, you know? Right. Introduce a likable kid character and then leave him alone for a little bit. You know it's going to be some sort of problem later, right?
Yeah.
And so that happens again, but to be totally clear, this isn't so much of a criticism. Like, it was a little predictable that something like this was going to happen, that the showdown might happen back at Atsu's old house. There's a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of talking about burning trees and talking about Atsu's old place and where the tragedy happened. And so this was well foreshadowed in advance. I just think, I don't know. I was ready to take the gloves off and go for it. There were a few things, and actually I think the major stumbling block for me here was, I think I did a quest out of order. I think you get this main mission quest very early on in the game. Before you go take on the Oni, you get 3 main quests. You could go to the Oni, you could go to the Kitsune, or you can go to Lord Saito's recruiting camp.
Right.
And I did the 2 Yōtei 6 fights, and I went to the recruiting camp. Like, it was the last thing I did before I entered the final area of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's out of place. I think it was kind of expected that you go do that and then you go do the Oni and Kitsune, because of this conversation that you have with Lord Saito. And it sets up a good foreshadowing moment because he's like, oh, Atsu, you're here. Yes, I remember you. And there's this moment in this fight where Atsu's like, take out your sword, take out your katana. Don't fight me like some random person. Fight me like, the person I deserve to be, the person that I am. I deserve this fight to be, top tier, ultimate revenge, 1v1 fight. And he doesn't allow that for her. And I wish I would have done that fight early on because then it would have worked really well as a great callback with some, with some payout later. Because in this fight, he's like, you have earned my sword. You have killed all of these people. Let's fight this out with the sword now.
I gotcha.
So I think I kind of like maybe botched it a little bit there, but no, I liked it. I had a lot of reason to kill this guy. He had a lot of reason to kill me. I mean, it felt good. I was like, let's get this on.
Yep. I think there was enough time because you still have to do all the dragon and spider stuff after that recruitment camp scene. So, and I was doing all the camps and stuff like that. So there was enough time for me to have some distance there. But yeah, the fight, the duel, it starts with Atsu burning the sash. It's incomplete and she burns it, which kind of signaled to me like she might be ready to let this guy go. Like she might just be willing to say, fuck it. Like I got something else now. But he says, no, we're fighting. You took everything from me. We're fighting. Like you wanted a duel. You've got a duel. So I did like the symbolism of burning the sash. And I like the symbolism of the sash and the tree and fire and things like that throughout the whole story. They all come back in this last fight against Saito. So the fight was really hard. He killed me so many times. For all the reasons we talked about why boss fights can be tough in this game. I could not figure out Yari attacks in the whole game. Just couldn't figure them out. And he fights with one for a time. And he and the spider both have gun attacks where they'll pull out a gun and shoot on really short notice.
Yeah.
And it was tough. But what happens here is during the fight, Atsu starts to lose a little bit. And Saito's about to strike a really tough blow, and Jubei shows up and kind of shoulders him out of the way. And this is a choice that Jubei made to come back, which is important.
Yeah.
And Saito kills Jubei very quickly. He's not a match for Saito in combat. So he stabs him through the stomach and stuff like that. Atsu eventually kills Saito. Symbolically, she skewers him to the tree when he dies as the killing blow. But Jubei dies. And she, the ultimate cost of her revenge was she lost Jubei. She found him and then she lost him again. I think that this lets Atsu off the hook in a way that I don't think I love. The fact that they chose to make him come back. Either the revenge is too irresistible for him, that he's corrupted by this and he needs this too. Or maybe he's not corrupted. Maybe he's needed it all along and he comes back. But I really feel like it sounds fucked up to say, but I wanted it to be Atsu's fault that Jubei dies at the end. That's the cost.
Yeah.
And it still kind of is, but it was his choice in the end that got him killed. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about this?
I mean, I think this is really interesting, what you bring up here. So the final act, is this game divided in acts or chapters? It doesn't really matter. The final one is called The Cost of Revenge.
Yeah.
Right? And we see this, as we've described, with all these different failures leading up to this moment here. I think it functioned well symbolically because the two of them are called the Twin Wolves. And I don't know if they were literally twins. I assume that they were. I don't know. And there's this whole wolf companion kind of side quest that you can do. You could build this companion relationship with the wolf, and you can get this wolf that's also on this revenge quest to kind of come and help you in battle sometimes. And it was way cool when it happened, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of read this as like, instead of like the literal wolf being summoned to your aid in this fight, you summon your twin wolf brother
Okay.
to the fight,
Uh-huh.
which I think was cool. However, I think the dual fight worked a lot better. I think it's with the Kitsune, right? Phase 1 of that boss fight. Aren't you fighting with Oyuki? No, it's phase 2 of that fight. Excuse me. Phase 1 of that fight, you're fighting the Kitsune one-on-one, and then a bunch of other enemies come in. Oyuki goes to fight off all the peons that come in. And then once you get to the final phase, it's you and Oyuki killing the Kitsune. And I thought it was a really cool fight where it was like a 2v1. Here, it kind of was just like, Jubei shows up, and then he's like dead 2 minutes later. Like, and so I guess like I similarly didn't love it, but I think for different reasons, in that I felt like it was a flash in the pan. Jubei's here, Jubei's dead, and he's really dead this time.
Yeah.
And it didn't function as a way to give me extra resolve to kill Lord Saito, because a part of me was like, wait, why exactly did Jubei show up? And now he's dead? So I do like what you're saying. It's like, if we really want to hammer home the point that you have irredeemable, or maybe not irredeemable, maybe that's the wrong word, but you have consequences that you no longer have control over, Atsu, and one of those consequences is Jubei dying, then yeah, I think it needed to play out differently. I think it worked in the sense of like your companion wolf comes to help you, but I was expecting at least like a really cool full phase of a 2v1 to really build up his death before him just kind of showing up and dying really quickly.
I do think it's like kind of effective that he dies super unceremoniously though. Like,
yeah,
it's foolish for him to get involved. He's outmatched and he just he dies very quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of effective. And I think that it might be semantics because like it is in the end, I don't think it's a stretch to say it's still Atsu's fault kind of for getting Jubei involved in all of this in the first place. Like,
yeah,
Jubei got captured because Atsu made that choice. Jubei's there at the house now because they're riding back from freeing Jubei and Oyuki from their, from their prison. So in a way, it's still Atsu's fault. I guess it just took a little bit more connecting the dots for me to be like, this does still ultimately fall on Atsu, even though Jubei made the conscious decision to get himself involved.
Yeah.
And Kiku's going to remember this. And like the epilogue of the game is Atsu and Kiku. Atsu, Kiku, and Oyuki are, I don't know if Oyuki's living there too, but they're like, the two of them are helping to raise Kiku together in a way.
Yeah.
And like Kiku misses her dad. That epilogue's like it's months later, I think. So like she misses him, but like the harsh pain of like that moment is gone, and she's on good terms with Atsu. So I don't know. It left me feeling a little bit conflicted of like, I feel like Atsu got off a little bit too easy, even though her brother died. Like with all the cost of revenge throughout, especially the second half of the story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a feeling I got.
No, I agree in that, like, so the epilogue, I'm fairly confident it's 6 months later.
Yeah.
And the way that the game kind of reintroduces you back into the world, if you want to complete stuff you left undone, is like Kiku's like, tell me another story of your adventure as the Onryo. And so I thought it was cool, like nice poetic justice here. We're getting back to this idea of storytelling that I really love, this creation of this myth and the legend who Atsu is. But it was kind of just like, wait, now Kiku is suddenly Atsu's protege? Like, I felt like there wasn't enough maybe gravitas of Jubei's final moments. And I agree with you that like him dying unceremoniously made total sense, right? Fresh out of the torture room, was way underclassed versus this guy. I mean, Lord Saito was going to kill him, right? There's no question about that. But it did make, I guess I'm over here scratching my head because I'm struggling to articulate or to even understand, why Jubei needed to come back and die if it didn't have more of an impact on things than it seemed to have.
Yeah, it is, I'm glad you pointed that out. It is kind of weird that Kiku wants to hear more Onryo stories when she was freaked out by it earlier in the story, and she's smart enough to put together that, like, this whole thing is the reason my dad got involved and he got killed. Like, it is kind of weird that Kiku wants to hear more about it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why maybe that's part of the reason why it feels like, yeah, she lost one of the 3 people that's most important to her, but it still kind of feels like Atsu got off easy with this. If there was a cost, but I'm having trouble, like, it doesn't feel connected to her in enough a way. I think that's where I'm going to have to leave it, because I don't think there's any more juice I can squeeze out of that take. But yeah, I left feeling a little unsatisfied with the ending, and I think that's why.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think, yeah, and this is almost, we're repeating what we said. In terms of spectacle, I really love that boss fight. That was actually one of the boss fights that I felt more comfortable with, that I felt like I walked away with a bit more mastery.
Cool.
So that one really landed for me. But yeah, it ends. We have this story, and I'm like, actually, the immediate thought that I had was, oh, you could continue on Atsu's story if you were to make a sequel to Ghost of Yōtei, but I sure hope you don't. I hope you do the same thing that you did between Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yōtei, between Ghost of Yōtei, and if they were to make another sequel that's like 100 years later or something, give me a new character and give me a new ghost again. I think that worked really well. I felt like, eventually I felt this way with Jin's story. Is like, I felt like that story's over. It is pretty well concluded, because that's how a revenge story is going to end. It's kind of like, in some spaghetti westerns, it's like, hey, well, I killed everybody, I guess I better go homestead.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we ended with Ghost of Yōtei, but
yeah, kind of.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm out of things to say about this as well, too. So
yeah, that's
I'm done.
Fair. Yeah, I would take a sequel with, a new location, a new time period, and a new injustice that spurs someone to become a ghost of some kind. I would take that. I was like, please don't make Kiku turn into like the next ghost. I don't think I want that for her. And I don't know, it would be interesting. I don't think I want another game starring Atsu. I like Atsu. I like Erika Ishii's performance. I just don't think I need more of Atsu's story, and I hope that Atsu rests after this. You never know. What's interesting about these characters is, like, some revenge stories will go into that, like, what do you do after you're done type of thing. And this one kind of hints at it, but you don't really know. Maybe because Kiku's there, Atsu's having an easier time than if there was no Kiku in the first place. So
yeah,
maybe. I think that's all I had to talk about with Ghost of Yōtei, and we're coming up close to 3 hours now. Unless there's something else you wanted to dive into.
No, I think I've kind of exhausted all my thoughts on the game. So yeah, I'm ready for the home stretch.
Yeah, well, let's do it. This has been a really fun episode. Classic one where I didn't expect us to hit, close to 3 hours, but here we are. It is a fun game to talk about. And I do think that, a lot of criticisms in the non-spoiler section of the episode about, some of the game design parts of it that rubbed me the wrong way. But once we get into that good stuff, and honestly, the stuff that I came here for, the presentation of it and a new story to experience, I think the story is really fun to go through. Lots of interesting twists along the way, and not in like there are some like, oh, you thought they were dead type twists, but a lot of more like subtle things that get thrown in Atsu's way that was a lot of fun to discuss. So Jake, thanks for doing this with me.
Hey, always happy to be here. Yeah, another great game to talk about. I was going to joke earlier, I think this is the time for it. If you haven't done an episode on A Plague Tale Requiem, that's another revenge story.
Okay.
If you're looking for more revenge stories. No, yeah, This is a great game to talk about. I mean, this is a big, meaty, open world game. You and I both spent 30, odd hours in this game. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of time to kind of sit with these stories, sit with this gameplay, and it really does merit a long conversation like this to kind of touch all the points there.
There we go. Well, I don't normally like to take shortcuts in the episodes. I like to talk about everything I want to talk about. So thanks for going on that ride with me. I will give another call at the end of the episode for everyone to check out the Pre-Order Bonus podcast, check out the Indie Impressions sub-series on the Pre-Order Bonus, check out Jake's writing over on So Many Games, and if you're here with us to the end, boy, let me tell you, you are my hero, truly. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.